The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin' It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin' It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin' It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review Wrestling Dontaku and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/social suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can access the live stream, ad-free audio, and bonus content by subscribing at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, we finally did it after months of testing and camera and lighting. The stream is officially open for people to jump in.
Yeah, it was not without struggle. It wasn't without setbacks and resets, but we've finally made it here. Now that I know that there's people on the other side of the camera watching us, and not just that this is going to get cut up and put on YouTube later, but that there are people here watching us, I feel like I need to do something to be more entertaining physically. Like, the listeners at home, or, the people that are just listening on the audio, they're not seeing this, but, crazy hand movements. I feel like I need like a signal or something when I first come out, like I don't know, like I'm Hanma or Nagata, like when a wrestler gets introduced and they're like, like something like that. Like I need to have a pose or some shit when you say that I'm on the show, so people know.
We're just gonna start doing our own entrances.
This is gonna shift very quickly into a backyard wrestling federation.
Well, I have experience with those, so.
Not me. I've only done professional, the real shit, real stuff.
Yeah.
Jeremy's only done the fake wrestling, like in high school and college, the fake shit. I've done the real wrestling.
Yeah.
But we're glad to be here. I'm so stoked that we're finally fucking doing this. And if you're listening on the audio only version, just know that you're only getting half the show. You're missing out right now. You cannot see our beautiful faces, the lovely backdrops that we have, and all the entertaining shenanigans that we get into.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So the Patreon, it's open. Patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Just a reminder of the tiers. So we got, well, first of all, you can subscribe for free. So if you're curious to see what's on there, you can see when we post stuff. Obviously, it'll be locked, but you can just get updates, and I'll post like the YouTube clips on there for free. So you can subscribe free and to just kind of see what's going on. And then you can make, your first investment, $1 tier, Young Lion tier. That's just a great way to support the show. Helps us with all the production stuff here. And then $5 a month, that grade 1 tier, you're going to get this show ad free. We got a bunch of ads on Red Circle. If you get the $5 tier, no more ads for you. You get this audio ad free, and you get any bonus audio that we do. Last week, I dropped one of my first bonus audios doing a midweek news update, because, a lot of times news will come out right after we get done hitting record here, and we have to wait a week, to cover it. So now I'm going to cover some of that midweek. So that first audio went out last week, and there'll be more to come of that. And then there's the IWGP $10 tier. That will get you in the door here for the live video stream.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to catch the audio that you sprung on the channel. I was not aware that you were doing midweek audio, but I was glad that you did. When I checked it out, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. This Patreon platform, it opens up a lot of opportunities and just different creative ventures, things we could be doing to kind of service the audience, which you know how much I love servicing the audience. So but one thing we had discussed at one point was, if you're on a certain tier, we shout out your name and thank you. And we're not going to do that. I do want to say, though, anyone that is here, that's listening, that has subscribed, we greatly appreciate it. It does not go unnoticed. The main reason I had said that maybe we shouldn't do that is because I anticipate we're going to have a lot of people subscribing. And, in the beginning, it might be easy to, list off 2, 3, 4, 5. But then when you get to like 20, 30 names, 40, it will get untenable at a certain point. And so that's where I was like, maybe just as a person, we don't do that. Even though I know some shows do that. But, we're going to play around with this. We're coming up with different ideas and ways that you guys can get involved. So, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So thanks to everybody who has signed up so far, and it's really kicked this thing off, and we appreciate your support, and we're going to continue to make the Patreon bigger and better. So if you haven't come on board yet, you can jump on for free to kind of see what's going on, or get in on one of these tiers, get you some bonus content for the true Kiss sickos out there.
Someone in the Discord came up with the name that was not the Kissers. I don't know I can't remember what it was.
I think Imp had a good one.
Was it the Strong Stylists?
Yeah. The Strong Stylists. Yeah.
I like the Kissers better.
Oh man. Well, we got a lot to dive into on this week's show. And, this is the first episode of May, which means we have to crown our April Wrestler of the Month and Match of the Month. So we're going to start off with the Match of the Month. Young boy, tell the people who our April Match of the Month is.
Yeah. So this month, and I'll be just frank, it was a little tight, but on both fronts, both for the Wrestler of the Month and the Match of the Month. Ultimately, we decided to go with the very heralded match between one Jack Perry, the Scapegoat, and Shota Umino from the Windy City Riot in Chicago. Great show, featured some other notable matches that were up for consideration. The title change between Mox and Naito, that was on the board, as well as the Zack Sabre Jr. and Matt Riddle match. There was the Dominion main event, or not Dominion, Sakura Genesis main event between Naito and Tsuji. That was also up there. The Dominion three-way tag team match with all the junior tags, that was also kind of on the block. So there was quite a few matches that were sort of in the same like 4-star-ish type realm, but the Perry Umino match really stood out for quite a few reasons. We go back in the archives and listen to the full review, but it's hard to deny the impact that match had on that evening when it came to the ambiance and the crowd reactions. And that's probably what put it over the edge here.
Yeah, I mean, we were there live, and we talked about on the review just how crazy that atmosphere was, how electric it was. And it ended up tearing the house down. They had a way better match than they did in the New Japan Cup. Definitely Jack Perry's best match in New Japan to date. And great win there for Shota Umino. So yeah, that is the April match of the month. And then for the wrestler of the month, it's actually going to be wrestlers of the month for April. We're going to go with the junior tag team from the Bullet Club War Dogs, Drilla Maloney and Clark Connors, the current IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions. They had 2 successful defenses this month, and then they were embroiled in the feud with LIJ. Clark had a good singles match with Shingo. Drilla beat Naito in his singles match, and War Dogs were very dominant this month, and especially with Drilla and Clark.
Yeah, Clark Connors was also on the winning side of that Riot Rules match in Chicago as well. He had one of the better matches in that Gauntlet series, even though it was on the losing end against Shingo. So these guys really, put in the work. They did a lot, had a lot of great matches, and there was a few other people that probably could have won this award. Doki was up there, Naito, Mox, Shingo was one that I was heavily considering, but when you just look at the totality of what they did in this month, it's hard to deny the impact that the Junior War Dogs team had this month.
Yeah, so Drilla and Clark doing great stuff there. So they are our April wrestlers of the month. And that's going to wrap that section up there. So now we're going to jump into our Wrestling Dontaku review. Got 2 shows here to review, May 3rd and May 4th. Before we dive into the card, young boy, overall thoughts on Wrestling Dontaku between both nights and just kind of the vibe and direction coming out of those shows?
I would say mixed, because this certainly was the culmination of quite a few storylines that have been built for a while now. And we've kind of complained in the past, and it's a recurring theme that, on some of these tours, when the big shows come up, they split them into 2 or even sometimes 3 nights. And on this tour, you've got Satsuma no Kuni. That's almost like a junior Dontaku at this point. So yeah, it was kind of mixed. Like if I were to just look at the top end matches from each night, if you were to combine those in some way and put them on one show, you might have a better feeling coming out of all this.
Yeah.
That's not to say that the tag matches underneath weren't entertaining or that they didn't, do good work and tell good stories and set stuff up. They did. It's just 2 nights of 4+ hours of action back to back. It's a lot. And I didn't necessarily, even though I liked both of these shows, I didn't walk away thinking like, okay, we're on track. This is, a healthy, vibrant feeling company. And there were some booking decisions, and it might even seem like minute stuff, but there's just some presentation type things where I'm like, I don't know if we're gearing up this young generation the way that we need to be. I don't know if I have my faith in Gedo, up to the levels that it needs to be right now. And then when you look at the attendance for each night, that was something not just to the fans, like the smarky fans who are paying attention to that stuff. It was a talking point in many of the promos that the wrestlers had, where they kept mentioning that they were only doing just around 2,400 each night, which is not good for, Fukuoka, especially when, the building that they're in can do like 5,000, 7,000, 6,000. So that was, and especially because it was kind of loaded up with big stars. You had Nick Nemeth from the outside. You had Jon Moxley from the outside. Naito was there, Tanahashi, so it's one of those things where it's like, there are some positives, and we'll get to them and we'll do the review. But overall, I left feeling kind of mixed, and I feel like that's sort of where they're in this weird nebulous area right now.
Yeah, I felt pretty much the same. There were some things that were great and some things that were not so great, and left me questioning like, what is the direction of this company? Why are we, doing certain booking decisions here? And yeah, attendance was a big thing there. And it's one of those things where maybe they should go with the whole thing they try to preach sometimes, less is more. And I get it. Traditionally, Dontaku is 2 shows, and even with Satsuma no Kuni, 3 shows. Like, maybe this should have been 1 show. Maybe you could have did 1 bigger house instead of 2 smaller houses. If you gave 1 big loaded card, maybe that would have been more attractive for people to come out, and you get a bigger house. But yeah,
maybe it's hard to say though, because and we didn't watch it. Full disclosure, we're gonna go over the results of the Altogether show from earlier today, but there wasn't enough time in the day for us to watch these shows, watch everything else that we're covering, and then also the pay-per-view from earlier today. So we'll do a full review on that next week. Plus we've got reviews for the upcoming shows coming on this episode as well. But they didn't necessarily light the world on fire with Altogether shows attendance either. So it is one of those things. I've thought about this while I was watching the show, and I'm like, it's really easy to armchair, quarterback and say what they should or shouldn't be doing. I'm really in a state, and I know that we're supposed to be experts here and talking heads and analysts and everything. But the reality is I don't know what they need to be doing specifically to turn the company around. I mean, we can talk about things that seem obvious, but I thought about that. Like, would it even be beneficial for them to do 1 stronger show? Because what if they do that and the same amount of people show up and now they've, for lack of a better term, they blew their wad and they're sitting there with 2,400 people instead of 4,800 people by splitting the show in 2. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very hard to kind of figure out, what exactly they should do, what they shouldn't be doing. Because, I mean, like we said, some things are doing good, and you would think, like, all right, maybe, Jon Moxley, big top foreign star. You think that would have drawn more stuff? Tanahashi in a title match, you think that would have been a bigger draw? So that they're doing some right things, but also I think a lot of it too with the just the financial situation of Japan as a whole, with the yen being down, and I haven't obviously analyzed how that affects people's day-to-day lives. So I don't know their grocery prices or any of that other stuff that could be affecting people potentially going and buying tickets for shows, or even how that affects their pay and the whole economy. So there's a lot of questions that we don't have answers for, because obviously we don't live in Japan. We don't really study the market that closely, but I'm sure some of that financial situation has probably been a strain from fans too.
Potentially, somewhat. The other thing too is in the backstage comments, Great O'Khan, he's had a lot of things to say, talking about essentially the difference between his philosophy of what New Japan needs to move towards, what it needs to be doing, and why he felt like his brand of the rural revitalization was a healthy movement for New Japan in terms of entertainment and attraction to the fans versus the more traditional route that Uemura is going, where he keeps trying to reestablish, strong style the way Inoki did it. And basically saying like, we can't live in the past trying to do the same stuff that got, that essentially like isn't going to attract and excite people. And he talked about like how New Japan, when they were going through their dark period, that was in the height of Inokiism, and it was Tanahashi's flashy style of wrestling that sort of attracted fans back to the product. And I don't know if I fully buy into everything he's saying there, and I know some of it isn't in character, but I do think it's interesting, kind of the parallels that he's drawing there and the examples and trying to make his case for why. We buried the shit out of KOPW last week, but at the same time, some of the stuff he said was kind of ridiculous, because he's saying that they need to go to these smaller rural, gymnasiums that can fit 2,000 people and pack them out by doing, these zany matches. And in his thinking, that's the way that they're going to surpass AEW and WWE. And I'm not putting words in his mouth. That's what he said in the backstage comments. He essentially said, by maximizing our profits in these markets, we'll grow and then we'll be able to surpass them. And I'm like, I don't think he knows the economics of the type of business those companies are doing. But it's interesting. And me personally, I'm a big believer that, and I know I know a few weeks now I've said that I don't give a fuck about what the domestic audience thinks. and I'm being a little facetious when I say that, but the reality is it is important what the domestic fans think, because wrestling is a interactive, medium. It relies a lot on the audience, and you need an impassioned audience to elevate the product. You look at WWE in where were they this past weekend? They were in France, which that almost got to a hyperbolic area where it was almost too much. I don't know if you saw any of that, but
I saw clips.
It was it was so nonstop that I was like, they're not even letting the matches live and breathe or anything. The crowd was the biggest star that night, more so than anything that happened between the ropes. But a good crowd elevates the wrestling. And I'm a believer that the type of wrestling that I like, and go figure, maybe I'm just being egotistical here, but I'm a believer that the type of wrestling I like is the type of wrestling that draws the most money. And I'm a believer that if New Japan does the type of wrestling that they did during their golden period, that over time that will attract audiences back to the product. I just feel that way.
Yeah, I think doing that along with pushing the right people would over time bring people back. And again, we'll talk about it here in a second, but there have been a lot of questionable booking decisions on some of these cards. And, some of those decisions, if I was a fan, I'd be like, I don't know if I'm, ready to throw down my yen to follow this product with some of the decisions they're making. So I guess let's dive into both of these shows here, go through the results, give our thoughts on each of the matches. So we'll start here with night one, which happened on May 3rd. Show opened up. We had Boltin Oleg and Choma Kato defeating Katsuya Murashima and Togi Makabe, 6 minutes and 57 seconds. So just your opening young lion matchup here. Once again, Boltin Oleg on the winning side of things with a New Japan, quote unquote main roster wrestler on the other side.
Yeah. And I mean, technically he's also a main roster wrestler as well. A graduate of the Noge Dojo. They haven't really changed his presentation in any way just yet, which, if it was just the fact that he was still wearing the black trunks and the black boots, that would be one thing. But it's the fact that he hasn't gotten any music yet and he still runs to the ring like a young lion. That's where I'm like, it's a little hard for me to believe that he has fully graduated because the presentation is still identical to a young lion. The only difference is he's winning in dominant fashion in matches. So I think that's a little peculiar because I can't recall the last time someone quote unquote graduated and nothing changed. I mean, Ren Narita still kept the black trunks, but he at least got music. He stopped running to the ring and got a significant finishing hold and went on excursion, stuff like that.
Yeah, and he had the wrist tape and stuff so they definitely, even if he had the black trunk, there's a little addition. I think he had the black and white boots as well. So there's definitely some kind of little change, but we haven't seen that here with Boltin yet, which again, I'm like, is he really graduated or is he just saying that? I don't think until we see the full gear change and presentation, he's graduated.
Well, I know that they've made that announcement on social, I believe. So that's, it's like a confirmed thing and he's not in the dojo, but maybe they're still working out the kinks to decide how they want to present him or what they want to do. The other young lions, I just real quick, I feel like it's worth noting, Shoma Kato and Katsuya Murashima. On the commentary recently, I heard Chris Charlton say that he feels that Shoma Kato is a little bit quicker of a study when it comes to professional wrestling than Katsuya Murashima, and that he's a little further along. And I thought that was interesting because I personally don't really feel that way. I'm not seeing a discernible difference from either guy in terms of their progress at this point.
Yeah, for me, I think they're both about on the same level. And also, I mean, it's good. Like they're building the basics. Also, they're learning in the dojo still. But yeah, not one of them has really stood out to me where I'm like, all right, yeah, this one is like the leader of the two of them. And it's really the better of the two. So yeah, I think they still need time to develop and hone their craft. But they both look good here. Bolton got the win with the kamikaze, which is that forward barrel roll maneuver. Gets the win over Murashima. So then we move on to the next match. We had the House of Torture team of Sho and Yujiro Takahashi defeating the Just Five Guys team of Doki and Taka Michinoku in 7 minutes and 29 seconds.
Yeah, so more fallout from the recent, IWGP Junior title match at the top of Satsuma no Kuni. Sho and Doki, they've still got unfinished business. I believe they're in the same block in Super Juniors. So this is also somewhat a quasi preview for that as well. And again, just more fallout from that match.
Yeah, beginning of the match, Sho cut a promo saying, Doki, there's no way that you're going to win the tournament, so you should just give up now. So yeah, kind of building up that whole rivalry and the Super Juniors coming up. And then towards the end of the match up here, Yujiro used the Pimp Cane to hit Taka with it while the ref was distracted. Then he hits the Pimp Juice, 1, 2, 3, and gets the win over Taka.
I thought about singing Pimp Juice just now, but I'm not going to do it.
Sing it for the live stream for the viewers.
I'm all right.
And if you are watching, feel free to drop a comment there on the YouTube link and interact with the show.
Yeah, because I can't tell who's in here or not. I barely know how to use this shit.
Next matchup here, we had the Guerrillas of Destiny team of El Phantasmo, Hikuleo, and Jado. They defeated the TMDK team of Kosei, Fujita, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Hayes, 6 minutes and 55 seconds.
Okay, I got lost. Wait, you skipped a match.
Oh, I sure did. Yeah, Just Five.
I thought I was fucking up, but it was you.
Botchamania here live on the stream. Third match, we had Just Five Guys, Taichi and Nia Uemura, defeating the Empire team of Callum Newman and the Great Okan, 9 minutes and 14 seconds.
Yeah, and again, more fallout from the Uemura and Great Okan KOPW title match that just took place. And we'll talk more about Uemura. It seems like he's going in some interesting directions. But I get the distinct feeling that him and Great Okan are not done when it comes to KOPW. I know they usually do these matches like afterwards, like after a title match and they're still on tour, they'll do a tag, but this, I still feel like based on the comments that are being shared backstage and how Great Okan is waxing poetically about their philosophies and everything like that, it seems like there might be another rematch between these two at some point down the line.
Yeah, Great Okan has definitely made comments in the backstage. He said he wants to try Uemura's stipulation, the catch rules matchup that Uemura had proposed for the previous matchup. So it does seem like they're angling for a rematch there, but also Uemura, we'll talk about it later, but he seems to be challenging other people as well. Yeah.
Everybody. Like last week he mentioned Shibata, and then now like afterwards he's kind of mentioned quite a few other people, and in some of the preview tags he's like getting up in people's faces and sort of showing a bit more fire, which is it's a good thing. But remember how I said earlier, I kind of feel mixed where I'm like, I don't know what they're doing, and maybe it'll all come together, but it doesn't feel right now like a of what each guy is doing.
You froze there for a second.
Oh, I thought you froze. I was just saying it feels a little ill-defined right now as to how they're, career pathing these guys, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. But this was a good matchup here. Uemura, he hits the deadbolt suplex on Callum Newman to get the pin there and continues to pick up momentum as the provisional KOPW champion. So following that, we had the fourth match of the evening, which was ELP, Hikuleo, and Jado defeating Kosei Fujita, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Haste.
One thing that I've been noticing, and I haven't mentioned it, I know we talked about some rifts kind of appearing between Hikuleo and ELP. But one thing I've noticed that I didn't mention on the show, when they come out into making their entrance, ELP is still going into the crowd and playing up to everybody and shaking hands and kissing babies and all that stuff. Hikuleo's not doing that anymore. He just goes straight to the ring every time.
Yeah. I mean, he's still kind of doing the little heart stuff that they do, but he's not as enthusiastic as he is with the crowd like ELP is.
Yeah, he's still playing along a little bit, still doing the high five. So I'm not saying he's a heel, and he does the heart and everything like that. But like when they go out to the audience in the past, when they're like in their definitive babyface days, they would both go into the crowd and put arms around people and give them their belts and yada, yada, yada. He's not doing that at all anymore. He's just kind of like making a nasty face and then just walking out and getting down to business and getting right in the ring. Whereas ELP still, playing up to the audience. And I've noticed that recently.
Yeah. And this matchup here was kind of the fallout of the strong openweight tag team title match that happened between these two teams. And the finish here, ELP got the quick roll up on, I believe it was Mikey Nichols, the same way that TMDK got the quick roll up on Hikuleo in the championship match. So GOD,
and he grabbed the tights.
Yeah, grabbed the tights. So GOD getting some revenge here, getting a win over the strong tag team champions. And we saw how that would play out later this weekend with the tag team title picture.
Mm-hmm.
And we had two questions here. First from Less Commission 7252. Says it's with Tangaloa's debut in WWE this past Saturday. Is it now clear that Hikuleo is possibly going to WWE once his contract is up, or should he stay so he can be his own man and represent his family legacy in Japan as one of the future stars and not end up being in the shadows of his brothers at the Fed?
A great question. Last week we did a pretty in-depth discussion about Hikuleo and his prospects between, New Japan and WWE and everything like that. I don't want to have the whole discussion again because we talked about it in depth, and we did put that up on the YouTube. Thanks, Jeremy, for doing that. But, in terms of like where should he go, that's going to be a decision for him to make, because I don't know what his financial standing is. I don't know what plans New Japan has from him. I don't know what plans WWE has from him. If I was making a guess, I would say he's on his way out and heading to WWE, but you never know. They might have a Tongan, quota, and they might have already hit it.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't know did you see the clip where Tangaloa came into the match? Bro,
he missed his cue.
He missed his cue?
Yeah, you didn't see that where he tried to pull the referee out and like the ref had to like throw himself out for a little bit.
No, I didn't see that. I wasn't paying that close attention, but
if you watch the pay-per-view, you don't see it because the camera magic makes it look like Tangaloa was on time and pulled the ref out. But there was a fan footage where like you see the counts like 1, 2, the ref doesn't feel anything, so he starts like throwing himself out the ring, and then Tangaloa like comes up and like grabs him.
No, I didn't see that. That's funny. but the audience went silent. And sometimes like how an audience will like go silent because they're not sure who the person is, and then when they notice who it is, they're like, oh, and they react. Bro, when I tell you that this was, and I mean this wholeheartedly, and some people are probably gonna think I'm being facetious here. I'm not. I've never, in all my years of watching wrestling, I've never seen an audience as lively and just over the top engaged as this France crowd. This put like the Money in the Bank 2011 crowd to shame. This put like Canadian Stampede 97 to shame. Any Tokyo Dome you want to talk about, this put that to shame. Any AEW, I can't even think of an AEW show that ever had this much heat. Like the Puerto Rico show that WWE did, like, was that this year or was that last year?
That was Backlash last year.
This was more than that show. The only place I can think of where I've ever seen heat on this like magnitude or level is like 1980s Carlos Colon WWC like Puerto Rico. And even that like was a totally different kind of vibe. So when I'm telling you this is the craziest crowd I ever seen, I'm talking like they loved they fucking love WWE. Like they love every single little itty bitty thing, that even the shittiest stuff that they do, they loved it. And when Tangaloa came out, they did not say a word. He silenced the most lively crowd I have ever heard in my entire life, and they didn't get them back. Like he literally. Did you ever see Talladega Nights?
Yeah,
where he's like, everything that she said that was cool, you ruined it. Yeah. This is probably like the best match of the night, and everything that they had done up to this moment, he walked out and he just ruined it. They did not know who the fuck Tangaloa was, and they didn't care. Like they never like got on board with it. So it was strange.
Or maybe they knew who he was and thought it was just Camacho from NXT. They're like, what is this? So. What is this Mexican doing out here helping the bloodline?
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if there's like a quota. They can only have so many sons of Haku. They just hired Jacob Fatu. I mean, I don't know. I obviously like that's different. But that's also bloodline related. So I'm wondering, are they going to bring in Hikuleo? And like at the same time, like they're probably going to fucking love Hikuleo. Like look how big he is.
Yeah, dude. Super tall.
They're gonna think he's like Tong and Kevin Nash.
Oh yeah. And I know he tweeted out like the eyeball emojis when his brother debuted this weekend. So I mean, it's possible. And we had a similar question here from Def Triangle 720. Do you think Hikuleo could be next to go with the development of the bloodline story? And I mean, I think all signs are leaning that way. I mean, but this could be almost a Tama situation. There was years that we were hearing rumors that, Tama's going to WWE, he's leaving New Japan, and then he would just keep re-signing and never leave until just this past year. So maybe it could be a similar situation where there are rumors, maybe Hikuleo wants to leave, but then maybe New Japan makes a better deal, and then he stays. Nothing is for certain, but I would not be surprised if he does end up showing up and is a part of the whole bloodline universe, this, big cinematic, side universe they're creating here.
They're going to get their own fucking show.
Yeah, you tune it in Wednesday nights to, the Bloodline verse.
Wednesday night Bloodline.
Oh, man. Well, moving on to the next match, we had a Bull Club team here of Chase Owens, Kenta, and the Bone Soldier Taiji Ishimori. They defeated Bishamon and Tiger Mask 7 minutes and 34 seconds, and this was a preview match for the next day's tag team title match.
Yeah. All throughout the tour, almost every single night, this team of Chase Owens and Kenta, they've won every single preview tag match leading up to the next night's match, which has been pretty significant. And in my opinion, I just was figuring like, well, nobody thinks they're going to win. So they really need to do something to add some legitimacy and kind of heat up these challengers. And boy, did they ever.
Yeah, they went undefeated on the whole tour. Like you mentioned, it's continuing to rack up these wins here. It was Chase here this time hitting the package pile driver on Tiger Mask, and I thought the same thing as you. I was like, all right, give them their little win today, because tomorrow is going to be a different day. Oh man. So following that, we had Bushi, Hiromu, Shingo, and Naito. They defeated the Bullet Club War Dogs team of Clark Connors, Drilla Maloney, Gabe Kidd, and Gato in 11 minutes and 16 seconds. And this was a preview match for Gabe Kidd and Shingo for the Never title.
Yep. Plus, there's, still the ongoing feud between Bushi and Hiromu and Bullet Club War Dogs. All those guys are going to be facing off in Best of Super Juniors coming up very shortly. So, and the ongoing saga of LIJ versus Bullet Club War Dogs. So, this was fine. This was a good preview tag match. And, I don't know. I don't have much more to say than that.
Well, Bushi picks up another win here. He puts on that modified figure 4 leg lock on Gato, gets the submission victory, and Bushi is racking up these wins going into Best of a Super Junior 31.
And part of me would I would just be like, well, that probably just means that they're trying to build him up and make him credible. But when he gets to the tournament, he's not going to win. But given some of Gato's recent bookings, you just never know. That might not be the case. Might be getting him ready for a real run. You never know.
So following that, we had the House of Torture team of Evil, Ren Narita, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. They defeated El Desperado, John Moxley, and Shota Umino in 8 minutes and 44 seconds.
This was fine. A short preview tag match. I was a little surprised that it went sub 10 minutes. Ren Narita needed to pick up the pinfall victory here to look strong for the next night's challenge, which he did through cheating means. And
actually it was Kanemaru who got the win here. He sprayed the mist in the whiskey in Despy's face and rolled him up.
That's right. My bad. A lot of this feud has kind of centered around Shota Umino because of the fact that John Moxley hasn't been in the country. And, Umino obviously and something that was I guess a little lost on me, and we're going to talk about Resurgence, but I knew that he got the next title shot at Resurgence, but I failed to remember that it's a week after Dontaku. So they've kind of had to mix him into the entirety of the build. And he's had some choice words for Moxley, amongst other people on the roster, kind of being critical about Moxley's status as a part-time champion and, only showing up for the big shows, even though it just started. And, the whole thing with Ren Narita, his motivation behind wanting to win the title, part of it is wrapped up in trying to outdo Shota Umino and then also to kind of sabotage Shota Umino. So it's kind of been weird the way that this has all worked out. It's basically been a feud that's needed to take place without John Moxley actually being there. And I was hoping for a little bit more heat in this match to really get us excited for the next night's match. And I don't know if they really accomplished that for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I mean, it was filled, of course, with House of Torture shenanigans, and then also leading to the finish there with the whiskey and the roll up there. And yeah, it was fine. It gave you a preview of the next night of a bunch of shenanigans and the House of Torture playbook, but I wasn't revved up for Moxley Narita, and it didn't do a whole ton to really advance, Moxley and Shooter either.
Yeah, agreed.
So then moving on, we finally get into the business end of this card. We had the NJPW World Television title match, and we have a new champion as Jeff Cobb defeats Zack Sabre Jr. in 13 minutes and 28 seconds.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I know most of our listeners are aware of this, but in case you didn't know, these matches have a 15-minute time limit. At the press conference the day prior to this, these two guys had both made wagers against one another that they would beat each other in sub 5 minutes, which obviously didn't happen here. So there were, I think, like one of them was going to have to do the other one's laundry for a year or something like that. And the other one was going to have to buy, I think Jeff Cobb was going to have to buy like ramen all year for Zach if Zach beat, vegan ramen, if he beat him in under 5 minutes. So obviously that didn't happen, but this match for me was the match of the night. Just a great contest. And these two guys, we've seen them work together many times in the past. Last year, they had that trio of matches. And I feel like during that illustrious 16 title defense run that Zach had last year, no challenger gave him as many difficulties as Jeff Cobb did during that time. And so it is a little interesting because Cobb won the title here, which is very deserved. I mean, Jeff Cobb is a great wrestler, and it's been long overdue that he held singles gold in New Japan again. But, Zach had just won that title earlier this month. And so it's kind of like head scratching. It's like, all right, he had the title in January, drops it to Tanahashi. Tanahashi drops it to Riddle. And then in short succession, Riddle drops it back to Zach. Now Zach has dropped it to Cobb. So we went from having one champion for the entirety of the year last year to having 5 like new guys in a very short period of time, or 4, whatever that may be. But the one thing I will say here, the match was awesome. I wouldn't quite call it a squash, but given the style of work they did, it'd be hard to call this anything but a dominant win for Jeff Cobb. I mean, Zach just played the wrong game, and he really played into the type of wrestling that Jeff Cobb likes to do, and Cobb was able to overpower him and smash him many, many times. And it seemed like there was a lingering like muscle / rib issue that Zach's had in the past, and they played up into that, and that kind of became his downfall. And he wasn't able to outquick this guy and out grapple him, and he just got handled. Handedly.
Yeah, Zach had like a rib injury towards the beginning of the match after a hip toss from Jeff Cobb. So yeah, he had the rib injury, and then plus, like you mentioned, he's trying to play the power game with Jeff Cobb, and we've seen this with Zach in the past where he will deviate from his game plan because he wants to try to outmaneuver the other guy in their game plan. A lot of times when he wrestles like Ishii, he'll try to outstrike like Ishii or Shingo, and he always ends up getting knocked out, and it backfires. And here he was trying to, for whatever reason, show that he can hang with Cobb in a power game. He was able to get the Zach driver. He was able to get a power bomb off the top rope on the Cobb, but that took out a lot from him with the rib injury. And then, of course, Cobb's just bigger and stronger than him, so Cobb was over to overpower him. Of course, Cobb also hitting that big standing moonsault right on the injured ribs, and then eventually was able to hit the tour of the island towards the 13-minute mark there. 1, 2, 3. Jeff Cobb becomes our new TV champion. And like you mentioned, a little hot potato here, and it kind of makes you question what the deal is with Riddle and what the whole plan was, because it seems like maybe they were going to do maybe Riddle versus Cobb, because they did tease, Chosen Bros at the beginning of the year and Battle in the Valley. And so maybe Riddle was supposed to come to Japan and defend against Cobb, but for whatever reason, maybe he couldn't make it to Japan or whatever the deal was. And so they had to send Zach to beat him in the States and then have Zach do the drop off to Cobb, which it's very kind of weird booking. And it's like, what was the whole point?
Yeah. Having Zach win the title back was strange to say the least, because, granted, it was good because he got in a prominent match on a big card and he won, but then he had to turn around and lose to Jeff Cobb. And there's no shame in losing to Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb is an established guy, and he can beat pretty much anybody in the company on any given night. But it's just one of those things where when you talk about like the stop and start push of Zach, it's a little perplexing. And but all in all, great match. And I am wondering at this point, I'm like, damn, like, one of the things Zach had mentioned in the post-match comments is he said, like, his game has never even been 15-minute matches to start with. So he's almost a little bit relieved from being able to move on from, from being confined to that rule set and being able to kind of broaden his aim and go after the IWGP down the line. But with Jeff Cobb, who the fuck's going to beat this guy in 15 minutes? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to have to, like, either beat his ass or fucking roll him up or, get a special roll up. I don't know. Like,
yeah, but Banana Peel, Toriano style.
Yeah, that's a tall order to beat him in 15 minutes or just under 15 minutes. Like, fuck. And I also wonder, I'm like, we can call TJP the captain all day long, but who's wearing the gold, lunch tray belt? That's the Casio belt. That's Jeff Cobb.
Yes, Cobb is our new NJPW World TV Champion. He already has his first challenge coming up at Resurgence, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So following that, we had the semi-main event of the evening. The Rebel, David Finlay, defeats Gene Blast, Yota Tsuji, 22 minutes and 22 seconds.
Who was on commentary here? Was it ELP?
Yes, El Phantasmo was on commentary this night.
Yeah. I thought between the two guest commentators that they had, because they had, I believe, Cobb the next night.
Yeah.
Which Cobb's a great guy, but I'm just not a huge fan of his work on the mic when it comes to commentary, but I think ELP is really good. I thought he did a great job during this match, kind of highlighting some of the technical aspects of what David Finlay was bringing to the table here. And between the two performances that David Finlay had on this 2-night tour, I felt like this match was the vastly better match. And him and Tsuji, they worked really well together. I didn't think it was like blow away or anything, but I thought it went a long way to kind of establish David Finlay as, kind of reestablishing him as a dominant presence in New Japan once again. The only thing that's a little strange, we had been on this show really theorizing that this was a de facto number one contender match for the title. And, whoever won this would probably be in line for a world title shot after Resurgence, but they're going a totally different direction. And which some people are probably happy about because, Dave Finlay picked up the win here. And I know there weren't a lot of people that were like clamoring necessarily for Finlay versus Moxley at Dominion. Mm-hmm. So from that aspect, they're probably relieved, but it is a little strange, with Tsuji winning New Japan Cup and their feud being for the New Japan Cup or the results of it and yada, yada. I just would have imagined that Finlay would have his sights set on the black belt instead of the white belt.
Right, because his whole promo afterwards was like, I would have faced Naito, I would have beaten Naito, and I would have been the one to go and face Jon Moxley. I would have beaten Moxley. So yeah, a lot of the whole fallout of their rivalry was the whole world title scene. Even though there was unfinished business with Finlay in the global title, this match still would have made more sense, I think, to have him go after the world title next, but that was not what they decided to go here. But yeah, I thought the match was pretty good. Finlay being very dominant here, really working over the back of Yota Tsuji, and a lot of his offense was there, and did a big buckle bomb into the corner. We saw the return of the power bombs that he used to put out Tama Tonga, I believe, at this same show last year. So really kind of brought back that vicious, violent edge, and was kind of really taking it to Tsuji. Tsuji had to fight from underneath, came back towards the end. He was hitting some big moves. He got a short Gene Blast, but he was too hurt to get the cover there. We had a little bit of shenanigans with Gato handing Shillelagh off, and then Finlay was able to hit the overkill, which was that pop-up knee strike, and 1, 2, 3, he gets the win, and he says that he is the real New Japan Cup winner.
So just so I remember, because I don't have a layout of what happened in the match, and we watched a lot of wrestling the past few days. He handed off the shillelagh to him. He hit him with the shillelagh and then turned around and hit his finisher, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to mention that because I thought that happened, but I didn't, because I was like, I don't want to say the wrong thing again. I already fucked up that finish to the Mox tag match. I don't want people to think I didn't watch. I watched this shit. It's a lot to remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, Tsuchi, he went for the Gene Blast. Finley dodged it, hit him with the shillelagh, and then hit the overkill.
Yeah, that's that Triple H-ism. You know, hit him with the fucking gimmick, sledge. But then hit him with your finisher. That way, later on, when they show the video packages, all it shows is you hitting your finisher for the 1, 2, 3.
So yeah, Finley got the win here. Like I said, he says he's the real New Japan Cup winner. So that leads us to the main event, which was for the IWGP Global Heavyweight title, and the champion Nick Nemeth defeats the ace Hiroshi Tanahashi 17 minutes and 22 seconds.
Good match. Hot take, Jeremy. There's people who are going to disagree with me, but I think that this was the best Nick Nemeth match in New Japan so far.
I agree. Yeah.
Because I've listened to other reviews, and I know there was a lot of people that really liked that Ishii match at Windy City Riot. And for me, it just didn't connect for a lot of reasons. But in this match, there was a few things I liked. One, I thought that him and Tanahashi just had better chemistry. And I think part of that is just the experience of Tanahashi, the style of wrestling that he does, and his Western influences and his experience wrestling Western wrestlers from, you know, all the big promotions. And we've seen how Tanahashi is able to kind of, you know, translate that work into working with those types of guys in a seamless fashion. And I think he did that here again. So I felt like there was a little bit more cohesion between him and Nick Nemeth versus the other guys Nick has wrestled so far. And then the thing that I loved about Nick Nemeth's performance more than any of the other performances was he really relied a lot on his amateur wrestling roots. And that was a big part of the story of the match, was that he was out wrestling the wrestling master Tanahashi and, you know, doing a lot of like grounded takedowns. And I thought that stuff was kind of exciting. It was similar to the work that he did against Mike Bailey at Bloodsport. And he hasn't used too much of that in his other New Japan matches. So I thought that was a cool little wrinkle that was a little bit different than what he's done in his other New Japan matches.
Yeah, you know, both these guys, they both love Shawn Michaels. And so I'm sure there was a lot of play in there. Of course, Nemeth uses a super kick, calls it the 101 is one of his near fall moves here. But yeah, I agree. I thought this match was Nemeth's best performance. And you know, I heard Brian Alvarez make a point on Wrestling Observer Radio about Nick Nemeth overall in New Japan, that, you know, in WWE, part of the issue was he would wrestle not the WWE style. Like, he wanted to like bump and wrestle more kind of like indie style, and he wanted to really kind of live with that kind of Shawn Michaels, more high fly, flashy, and that's why he didn't really get pushed, because he was kind of wrestling this other style. He wasn't really doing the formula. And now that he's out of the WWE system, he's been doing WWE matches pretty much everywhere he's been. He's taking the formula and he's using it everywhere else instead of wrestling how he was wrestling in like 2012. And that's been my issue with him in this New Japan run. Everything, you know, the first Finley match, the Ishii match, it was a very WWE formulaic, where this, like you mentioned, he's leaning more into the amateur wrestling background here. There was just better chemistry. It felt more of like a New Japan match than a WWE style matchup here. And so I thought a good story. You know, both of them were both skinning the cat over the top rope, and it was kind of like, you know, anything you can do, I can do better kind of situation at one point. But then, yeah, you mentioned Nick Nemeth kind of was out wrestling Tanahashi, and you know, we saw in the pre-match VTR, Tanahashi was really training hard for this match, and he had made some comments about, you know, being president. He's kind of slacked a little bit as far as in the gym and preparing until that whole like VTR of him in the gym hitting these reps and weights, and he was worked really hard to try and be prepared for this match. But Nick Nemeth was just one step ahead of him here, hits the danger zone, formerly known as the zigzag, and gets the win over the Ace.
Yeah, and there was one point where Tanahashi went for the Ace's high, and then his follow at that point, I was like, oh, he needs to go for the high fly flow, and he didn't follow up with the high fly flow directly, and I thought that was interesting, just a choice. But eventually, when he did go for the high fly flow, Nemeth got the knees up and everything like that. At this point, there was a time, we're talking many years ago, where Tanahashi was like, bro, it was like 2018. No, 2019, 2019, something like that. So we're like almost 5 years out. And Tanahashi was like, I'm going to stop high fly flowing. I'm going to come up with a new finisher. And if I ever do that move, it's only going to be like in a big match. Bro, he does it on every road to, and he does it on every single fucking show still to this day. Like,
I thought he was going to do it to the outside in this match.
I thought he was going to do it to the outside in this match too. But yeah, it was a good match. I don't want to. And here's another thing too, Jeremy. I know you mentioned that Nemeth did less of a WWE formula here, but at the same time, I think the guy that can translate a WWE formula match into a New Japan style match better than anybody else is probably Tanahashi. And I feel like that's another reason why it worked, Yeah.
So really good matchup here. Nemeth wins clean with the danger zone, and then post match, the confetti goes off, and Nemeth is celebrating, and then Dave Finlay comes out and attacks Nemeth, and saying he's not done with him, wants a title match, and then Nemeth gets a promo, and it's like, all right, you want this, you want this so bad, and he's like, let's do it tomorrow night. We'll put the belt on the line tomorrow night 2.
Yeah, which like when he said that, I was like, oh, cool, we're getting another title match tomorrow. That's fine. But then I was like, that's a little strange because I thought Finlay was going for the world title, and I guess he's not. And then I realized that my prediction from last week, where I was like, this dude's going to team with Tanahashi the next night and turn on him. Like none of that. That's that. Then I realized like I'm wrong. So that's not going to happen. So
yeah. So we get that global title match added to the next card, and we'll review that now. Wrestling Dontaku Night 2 on May 4th. So showing up, we had the Frontier Zone pre-show match with Katsuya Murashima and Togi Makabe defeating Jet Way and Naoki Sakurajima in 7 minutes and 8 seconds. Fine opening match there. I
didn't even know people were commenting in the thing.
Yeah, Angel Rivera, what's up? He is watching the show live here, one of our $10 IWGP tier subscribers.
That's cool. Yeah, so the pre-show Frontier Zone tag match, Murashima, Togi Makabe, they took on Jetway and Naoki Sakurajima. I think they were from Taiwan?
Yeah, I believe they are, yeah.
Okay, I could be wrong. I don't remember exactly where, but Sakurajima was definitely the more veteran of the two. I don't have a lot to say here. I do like the Frontier Zone tag match formula, just kind of expanding, giving the younger guys opportunities to work with different types of wrestlers from outside promotions and kind of platforming those promotions. Long term, what will the long term benefits of it be? I don't know. It kind of reminds me of Lionsgate Project a little bit in that respect, but it's fun for what it is.
Yeah, fun opening match. Togi Makabe hits a King Kong knee drop on Jet Way to get the win. So yeah, like you mentioned, Lionsgate Project kind of bringing these wacky dudes in from other promotions. Fun little opening match. It's good stuff.
Togi Makabe on the on the post-match comments, bro, he just talked for fuck. Normally he doesn't talk ever, and then he just kept going and going. And like I was like, well, I know that he's like just a dad status, and I know that this was a nothing match, so I don't need to pay attention to what he has to say here. So I'm just gonna skip. And I was like, skip, 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 and he was still talking. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck could Togi Makabe possibly be talking about right now? That's pretty important. Wasting space on the SD card for whoever it was and then they have to translate all the shit that he said. Like, bro, just come on, dude.
Oh man. So yeah, that was the Frontier Zone. Then the main show opened up. We had TMDK, Nichols, and Hayes. They defeated Shoma Kato and Tiger Mask, 8 minutes and 8 seconds. So there's a little win there for the strong openweight tag team champions.
I was really pulling for Tiger Mask and Shoma Kato here. Title eliminator status. You pick up a win here, it opens up doors down the line. But unfortunately, it didn't play out that way for them.
Yeah, the doors were closed on them this evening, and TMDK wins a non-title matchup here. So,
also, I haven't mentioned this, but like Shane Haste is fucking huge right now, bro.
Yeah, he's jacked.
And like, I know that they're doing this whole TMDK, title quest storyline and everything, but part of me starting to feel like, bro, maybe you need to cut the baggage off and singles.
Well, Shane Hayes did beat Naito last year in the G1, so
he did, but he didn't look like this, and whenever a guy like starts getting into really good shape, you start wondering like, what's that for?
So following that, we had United Empire, Francesco Akira, and Great Okan. They defeat Doki and Yuya Uemura in 7 minutes and 54 seconds. So continuation here, the rivalry between Okan and Uemura. And then, of course, Akira and Doki will be in the same block for Best of the Super Juniors.
Yeah, and in the backstage comments, Doki mentioned how Akira rolled him up and got the victory here, but on a previous show, he had rolled up Francesco Akira. So they're basically 1-1 in these preview tags. And so the tiebreaker is going to come at Best of the Super Juniors. So that's kind of coming up between them. And like I mentioned, like Okan and Uemura are talking about one another so much that I think that they're going to, have another match down the line.
Yeah, I definitely think another match will be coming up. We have the New Japan Soul Tour, which will be coming up after Best Super Junior, so maybe their matchup will be there. And so, yeah, this match, Kira and Okan, they get the win here. And then following that, we had the TMDK team of Kosei Vegeta and Zack Sabre Jr. They defeat the United Empire team of Callum Newman and Jeff Cobb.
I feel bad for Callum Newman. He's the fucking pin eater for this group.
Sure is.
One thing I will say, Callum Newman has all the tools, as they like to say, but bro, in the post-match comments, this guy never has anything cool to say, like at all. So one thing he really does need to work on a little bit, but at least he's not like, Makabe just like taking up needless time. He usually says a couple sentences and then just gets out of there. But they need to rehab Zach a little bit. Took a big loss the night before. So, get that win back so we can get in the W column.
Yeah, hits a big Zach driver on Callum Newman. 1, 2, 3 gets the win there for his team.
It's called the Zach driver?
Yes.
For some reason, sometimes I call it the Black Zach driver, and I don't know why the fuck I started.
That is when him and Taichi do the Black Mephisto Zach driver combo.
Is a thing. Okay, that is a real thing. I was like, why the? I'm like, he's not black. Like, why am I calling him the Black Zach driver? And we had a listener a few years ago, Black Sabre Jr., and I was like, okay, and maybe I just, where did I come up with this? So it is a thing. It wasn't just me being weird.
So following that, let's see, what do we have now? Oh yeah, God, El Phantasmo and Hikuleo teaming up with Desperado and Shota Umino. They defeated the House of Torture team of Evil, Sho, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Yujiro Takahashi.
Yeah, kind of continuing all the stuff that's been going on between Shota Umino and the House of Torture. We've seen all of these different guys within like God and Desperado and Umino, kind of like the Hantai unit, like kind of begrudgingly teaming up with one another. Kind kind of an odd fit, but it was funny because Desperado like isn't with the haha. He isn't with the, the happy go lucky, play up to the fans and do the hearts and everything like that. And God was like really trying hard to get him to, play along with their antics, and he wasn't really feeling it. But eventually they were able to get him to quasi go along with it, which was funny.
Yeah, and God, this team ended up getting the win here once again, and again picking up momentum. They won the first night, won this night, and I believe this was after this match we had the angle where, or it was actually after the tag title match, right, where they all came out.
Yep.
But yeah, this win here would catapult them into getting momentum and going into that tag team match angle later on in the show. Rambo and Slam Pigs in the chat. He says racially problematic in the very first live stream.
Who said anything racially problematic?
He's talking about your black Zach driver and Zach not being black and. All right, so moving on to the next matchup here, we had Tanahashi and Boltin Oleg defeating Taichi and Taka Michinoku in 8 minutes and 57 seconds.
Yep. Again, Tanahashi got to get the W back. Him and Boltin, obviously, they are, never 6-man tag team champions. So, picking up a little bit of steam there. What I really loved about this match in particular was the heat between Oleg Boltin and Taichi. Like they just were going at one another, especially even after the bell, and kind of continuing. And probably for the first time in the backstage comments, I saw like real fire from Oleg Boltin, where he was like, he basically said like he was going to kick Taichi's old ass or something along those lines, which usually he's just like very gracious and he's like talking in a low monotone voice, and he was pretty fired up. So yeah, not a lot here. Again, like last week I mentioned how night one's card kind of looked a little bit stronger on paper. And I think overall night two probably ended up being the better show, but like this match in particular is a key example of like just kind of filler fluff that was on the show. Like they got the guys on the tour. You want to get them on there. You want to have them work. And I get that, but I don't know if we needed Tanahashi and Boltin Oleg versus Taichi and Taka Michinoku, and, for 9 minutes. Was that necessary?
Yeah, we probably could have.
4-hour show.
With the addition of the Finley match, yeah, we could have, dropped this tag match up here. But who knows? Maybe it's planting seeds for something coming up, because Boltin, like you mentioned, was all up in Taichi's grill the whole match. And even post-match, Young Lion had to pull them apart, and then the post-match comments. So maybe just 5 guys. Maybe they're going to challenge for the never 6-man titles, or who knows? Maybe this is planting seeds for G1. Maybe Bolton's going to be in G1, and him and Taichi are going to be in the same block. Who knows?
Taichi's also kind of been in a weird sort of, I keep using the word nebulous on this episode, but like nebulous area where like his comments are all over the place. Like at one point, I almost thought he was hinting that he wanted to go after KOPW interfactionally again. And then like his comments on this night where he was talking about wanting to go after the IWGP. He wants to win the G1, give him a chance, essentially. Like he started campaigning for a title shot, essentially, which I'm here for it. And, put him in the right block. Let's have him beat some people,
Yeah. Yeah, I think Taichi is definitely underutilized, especially with the lack of top stars and lack of, guys who can really go. I think he's a guy that they could use in some of these big main events, some of these big title matches.
Mm-hmm.
So then following that last multi-man matchup here, we had the LIJ team of Bushi, Hiromu, Naito, and Yototsuji defeating the Bullet Club War Dogs team of Clark Connors, Dave Finlay, Drilla Manoni, and Gato. Actually, no, Finlay was not in this match. I think it was Ishimori that took his place, because Finlay ended up being in the global title match.
I'd like to tell you that you're right, but it's kind of a blur. I don't remember everybody that it probably was. You know what? It definitely was, because I remember thinking like this whole Bullet Club thing is so fucking weird when you really like start to think about it, because and I know we've talked about it a million times, but like the thing that stood out in this match was Ishimori was in the match. And I'm like, is Ishimori a War Dog, or does he fuck with House of Torture? You know? And is it weird that like him and Kanemaru are in the same, I guess technically group, but you know, you've never seen them hate each other. You've never seen them interact with one another. They don't tag. It's just fucking weird, you know? Right at this point, we've talked about there is a family tree of Bullet Club similar to the Anoa'i family tree, but you know, there's a branch that's just New Japan and it's divergent 3 different ways right now within the same company. I mean, there's the OGs, there's the War Dogs, and then there's House of Torture. And like at this point, I think they should just cut bait. Like House of Torture should be House of Torture. They're not Bullet Club. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I laugh every time the announcer is like, Bullet Club, House of Torture. I'm like, no.
They need to define some of this shit because it's weird, you know, and I feel bad for guys like Ishimori and Kenta. And I feel like the only reason Chase Owens and Kenta got a title run is just because they're like, you know, if we don't do something with them, they're just going to, you know, cease to exist. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, Rambo says Rogue Army too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess Rogue Army like kind of is. It's fucking weird. Who knows?
Yeah, and then, you know, this was Dontaku Bullet Club, you know, anniversary, so I had to get all these guys in here somehow.
Well, they lost.
They did this one. Yeah, they did. They did lose this matchup here. LIJ ended up rebounding here and getting a win, and that's gonna play into a tag match coming up at Resurgence as well. So then following that, we had the first title match of the evening for the IWGP Tag Team titles. And we had a Bullet Club win here as Chase Owens and Kenta regained their tag team titles by defeating Bishamon, Hiroki Goto, and Yoshihashi in 12 minutes and 44 seconds. Young boy, what the hell are we doing? Oh my gosh.
Part of me wants to be like outraged, you know? Part of me doesn't care. Like, how am I supposed to care about this? You know, the tag titles have just been, there's no sugarcoating it. They have been booked into the dirt this year, just terribly. Like every weird, bad decision that you could think of has just continuously occurred here. And, you know, just last month, or actually this same month, within the same calendar month, Bishamon got the titles back, successfully defended them once in Taiwan, and now they've lost them back to arguably on paper the weakest IWGP title holders ever in Kenta and Chase Owens. So I don't know. But there was a big angle at the end of this match, so maybe that's telling us something. But what was the point? Why are we flip-flopping this belt so often? I don't know. As for the match, my hot take, I thought this was the better match between these teams, like the best match that they've had. There was the storyline that the excuse for why Chase Owens and Kenta lost last time, Chase Owens had a fever. Kenta had been traveling from the States and just arrived after an international flight. And so now on this tour, all of those excuses were put behind them. And boy, did they, we mentioned it earlier on the show, but like they won every single preview tag leading up to this match. And I thought the booking was literally like, we're heating them up because they're going to lose at the end to Bishamon. And then they fucking beat Bishamon. And like, yeah, they cheated. They hit him with a low blow, but like for a Bullet Club team, this was as relatively clean a win as you possibly could hope for when it comes to Bullet Club. I was surprised, honestly.
Dude, I literally, as I was watching, I was shocked that they won the belts back again. I thought, you know, we had that experiment. You know, we gave Chase his pat on the back, we gave Kenta his pat on the back, and we're gonna move on and do something. Bishamon have them, you know, carry the belts once again. But yeah, they end up flipping the belts back up here again. Towards the end here, they hit Goto with a chair when the ref was out of position. They're beating down Goto. Goto comes back with a double clothesline. They're going for the Shoto. Then Owens escape, hits a low blow on Goto. Jackknife cover, 1, 2, 3. We have new tag team champions once again. And then, like you mentioned, post-match, we had Hayes and Nichols running out, and they have their strong titles, and they're getting up in Kenta and Chase's face. And then we had ELP and Hikuleo come out as well, all winning title shots. So we had all these teams coming out. Of course, Bishamon was still in the ring. Yoshihashi very mad about them cheating to win. So all four of these teams are kind of arguing about the IWGP tag titles. The strong tag titles are all getting in each other's face. And so it seems like maybe we're going to have a four-way at some point. We do know that there is a strong title match scheduled for Resurgence, which we'll talk about. But yeah, what did you make of this whole angle here?
Again, when you asked me my feelings on the direction of the company following this show, again, I was a little mixed, because it's like, okay, at least we are moving away. Like, okay, if we're going to put the titles on these guys, the chances that they might drop the belts to somebody else when you add two other additional teams, they go up exponentially. So that's a good thing. But did we need to put the titles on them to have this occur? Like, maybe to keep them in the, to keep them in it for the next tour, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It just feels weird. And then
why didn't they should just retain the first time? It should have been another rematch, and then they win again.
But then Bishamon would be out.
Oh well.
I guess, to me, it seems like they booked all of this just to get to the four-way match, which is strange. Like, I don't know. Like, why are we doing this? We just did a four-way match with tag teams in Chicago, which it was a good match. It was fine. I liked it probably more than, the cage match users, but I don't know. And then at the same time, you've got the strong champions, who are on this quest to become IWGP title holders, which, good on them. But how many times are we going to see the strong champions go after the IWGPs? And why didn't we just unify the shits back when we had the opportunity? And are we actually going to pull the trigger on that at this point or not?
Yeah, as soon as I saw TMDK walk, I'm like, oh, here we go again. This whole double goal dash thing with the tag titles. Like, we did it with Bishamon, we did it with GOD, and now we're going to do it again. It's like, yeah, these things need to be unified, get rid of strong tag titles, one tag division. Yeah, very, very head scratching. We had a couple questions here. Native in the Discord says, what dirt does Chase Owens have that allows him to keep on in NJPW? He had to have helped cover up a murder at least, right?
I don't know, but I mean, he's a company guy. He's somebody that has been extremely loyal and, worked without complaint during, some of the toughest times New Japan has. They took a blind eye to the allegations and stuff that he had against him during speaking out. And I think a lot of New Japan fans just seem to not even know about that for whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah. I think another thing too was there was that one Super Juniors tour. I think it was either like Matt or Nick Jackson they
dropped out and he jumped in.
Yeah, so since then they've loved him, and he had the job for life. And I know people were joking online, being like, we want him next for Bloodline. And then he tweeted that March, I think 2027 or 2027. I think his contract's up. So we have about 3 more years of Chase at least in New Japan.
Yep.
Def Triangle 720 says, why do we have to suffer with a shit heavy tag division?
I don't know, man. Ask Gato.
We're not the bookers.
Yeah, not the booker, man. Talking to the wrong guys.
Oh man. So yeah, so that's
He's asking us as though like he wants us to tell him what we have done wrong collectively to deserve this, like make sense out of it for me and tell me what, I can't do that. I'm not Ghetto.
Yeah. I mean, Rocky is our good friend, but he's VP of America. We can't, we talk to him. It's not going to, go all the way to Tanahashi.
Rocky doesn't tell us shit, bro.
But we can call in a favor and be like, You know
how many times I've asked Rocky, like, yo, what's going on with this? Silence.
Then he has a new album come out. Hey.
Hey.
No, we love you, Rocky. Thanks for supporting the show. We had a question here from in the chat here. Angel says, is teasing the tag titles emerging the new bringing back the old world title belt? Yes.
Yeah, maybe. I'm at the point, and I know we've said this before, but I'm at the point where I do strongly feel that they need to merge all of the strong belts. And one thing that, and I've started thinking about this on my own recently, is like, how I mentioned a few weeks ago, they've got 3 open weight titles. Mm-hmm. On my own, I started thinking like, why don't they just merge all that shit? They don't need KOPW and strong and never. And then I was thinking about like what Tony Khan had done when he did the Continental Crown or whatever. I was like, it would make a lot more sense for them to just merge those belts and have one stronger title. And now some of the booking is kind of leaning that way. You see like what's going on with like the Never champion getting challenged by the KOPW champion. And then even Gabe Kidd was challenging for Never, but he's also challenging for strong. And like, I'm like, there's connective tissue here. Like if they were smart, they could just combine that shit and have, a title that's stronger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. The king of strong, Never open weight championship.
The Never king of strong open weight title.
Oh man. So moving on to the next match. Oh, hold on here. Question in the chat here from Rambones. Would they rather they merge the belts and preserve the title lineages in that merger than they do away with the belts and make a new lineage with the World Heavyweight title?
Wait, explain that to me, Jeremy.
So I think he's asking, would they rather like merge the belts and keep the lineages than merge the belts and make a new lineage, like what they did with the world title? How they unified the world and IC, and they got rid of the lineage and started over.
Is he asking, would we rather?
He said he would rather they do that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, he was making a statement. He would rather that they did that. Yeah, I'm always a proponent of them keeping the title lineages instead of starting a whole new one. But then again, I mean, that's what they did with the Triple Crown in All Japan.
Yeah. I know. I get annoyed every time I see just 9th champion, like next to Jon Moxley. I'm like, why'd they screw up the lineage?
Yeah, that's a frustrating one.
Yeah. So moving on to the next matchup here, the Never Openweight title match. The Dragon Shingo Takagi defeats the Madman Gabe Kidd in 21 minutes and 23 seconds. Man, what a banger this was.
Yeah, this match was awesome. And I thought it was a lot better than the first match that they had with one another during the New Japan Cup. But to me, Jeremy, I felt like this match was like a test for Gabe Kidd in a certain sense. Like, Gabe is undoubtedly an incredible wrestler. We've known this for a while. We've seen him, have very strong singles matches, but time and time again, I've always felt like his singles matches have been plagued by, for lack of a better terms, like a smoke and mirror type of thing, where either there's heavy outside brawling, or in his earlier days, there was a lot of shoot style work taking place. And I've never really, not that I doubted his ability, but I can't actually recall too many times where Gabe Kidd has gone out there and wrestled what I would call a house style match. And this was clearly formulaic to what a classic Never style match was. Even recently when he wrestled Hikuleo, or not Hikuleo, Aaron Henare. That was an incredible match, but it was something that was like much more akin to like what you'd see in like a big Japan style match where, the big heavy headbutts and everything like that. But I've never seen him have something where I'm like, this reminds me of the main event style of New Japan. And this was the first time he went out there and like he showed on that level that he can do that. And then and for most of the match, I was like, okay, this is like the test to show that he can go on this level and do this and follow this pattern, follow this formula. But I didn't think that they were going to go beyond the formula. And then down the stretch, all of a sudden, like when they got into the lariat sequence where they were holding each other's wrists and the wrist control and everything, I was like, okay, they're going a little bit above and beyond, and they're really showcasing that, like, because we already know Shingo can do this, but they were showcasing that Gabe Kidd is capable of doing a 20-minute house style, main event style New Japan match, and he did.
Yeah, he killed it, and even from the entrance, he had the Dr. Death, Steve Williams inspired ring robe, had the Madman logo on the back of it, new gear. He had a fresh cut. I'm like, oh, this man's winning the belt. This man, new gear, fresh cut. I'm like, this man's ready to go. But yeah, they killed it. Big, strong strikes and chops, and it was loud, and it definitely felt like a big, match atmosphere, and they really brought the crowd in. And, the crowd was fine for the whole night, and crowd was kind of normal for the beginning of this match, but as the match got on, they pulled the crowd in deeper and deeper, and they were getting some really big, loud reactions towards the end of the match, towards the near falls, that closing sequence. So many good stuff there, and Gabe was biting Shingo's forehead, and that Shingo was fighting back with biting, and you had the big superplex off the top there. Shingo with a great near fall with the Made in Japan. Again, big trading strikes. Gabe Kidd had a big slap to the face of Shingo at around 18 minutes, followed by a pile driver, and then towards the 20-minute call, Shingo hit a sliding lariat, and Gabe Kidd pops up, and he's that big pumping bomber that turned Gabe Kidd inside out, and he hits the Takagi style pile driver for a near fall, which was a great near fall there, and then eventually pulled him up at the last of the dragon. But man, yeah, this was incredible.
Yeah, that Takagi pile driver was pretty sick. I loved, there was an early Gabe Kidd did a snap brainbuster that was really, really sick. And some of the story elements were really cool. Like Gabe Kidd was distracted throughout the match. I think, who was on commentary? Was it Despy?
No, Cobb. Well, yeah, Despy was on the Japanese call, but Cobb was on English.
Yeah, he was having heat with Despy on the call and kind of getting distracted there. And that was one of the story points that they were bringing up, how like Gabe's his attention is spread thin because he's got, Eddie Kingston in the States, and then he's focusing on Shingo, but he's trying to have matches with like guys like Ishii and have a fucking death match with Despy. So it's like he's kind of pulled into all of these different places, and they're like, if he would just focus his attention and his energy on the task at hand, he might have more success. But I thought this match was probably, I don't know, I really liked Zach and Cobb from the day before, so it's a toss-up. But I think that this kind of edges that just a little bit in terms of my favorite match on these two shows.
Yeah, I'm like 4.5 on this matchup here. I think I'm like more like 4.25 on Cobb and Sabre. But I thought this match was, just excellent. This was what, Never is all about. I thought Gabe Kidd really stepped up here and proved that he can hang in this style of matchup, like you mentioned, do that house formula and go to the next level, get the crowd really invested. And, the crowd was split. There was a lot of Shingo chants, but there was also a lot of Gabe Kidd chants, even though he's, shooting the bird at the crowd and, yelling and cursing at everybody and yelling at Despy and getting in everybody's face. Like, the crowd loves that. They're getting behind him. He still is a dojo guy. I know he started in the LA dojo, but he spent a lot of time in the Noge dojo, and they watched him grow up. And I think the fans are invested in his journey, and they know that the true life story about his mental health issues. And so I think they were really rallying behind him here as well. And so, yeah, there was big 50-50 chants, and yeah, he looked really good here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with Gabe Kidd because he seems to be so divisive. There are those fans that really don't buy into him whatsoever. They're kind of upset by the gimmick, and and for me, I don't know. Like I've always been a character guy when it comes to the type of wrestling that I like. Growing up as a fan of 1980s, like Jim Crockett, not that he would fit into that mold, but somebody that can talk people into the arenas. And I've heard a lot of other podcasters recently say that he reminds them of like not necessarily like, obviously he's a British man, but like, you know, in terms of like just the attitude reminds them of like early Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I could kind of see some of that DNA in there. And it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him, because he is re-signed with the company and everything like that. But he has been losing some of these bigger matches. And so you're kind of waiting for him to pull off one of the big victories. Maybe that's coming up at Resurgence. We'll see. But I was sort of kind of, like I mentioned earlier, I was sort of hoping like maybe he'd take the Never title and then turn around and win the Strong title. And then the discussion would start to be had like, do we need multiple open weight titles? You know, what's the purpose of this?
Yeah, I was hoping he would have won here too. Yeah, go in and beat Eddie, and then who knows? Then he could beat Uemura, and he'd be like, yeah, I'm the king of open weight. Like, we don't need all these other titles. Like, this is the real Triple Crown. You know, the real open weight title or whatever. And I thought that could have been a cool direction for him, but also not the case here. But I do think he's probably going to get that strong open weight title, and yeah, hopefully there are more big wins for him to come, since he is. We know he's under contract, and I think, yeah, he's a special talent, and I think that, yeah, they should turn the heat up on him. Hopefully he gets a good G1 block, and he can really stand out in that tournament as well. But yeah, I'm a fan of Gabe Kidd. I know some people think he's a try hard, and he's kind of this fake character, but I don't know, man. I think he's very believable to me. He cuts those promos, the way his aggression, his attitude. Like, I believe he will mess you up.
Yeah, I believe, me too. And in fact, the only thing that I feel like hurts a little bit the gimmick is the way that he talks so much smack and then doesn't come up on the winning side. More often than not, that's a little detrimental, but you know, it is what it is. Like, he's still, developing in terms of the kayfabe. As far as like, you know, him being a tryhard, one of the things that I appreciate about his character is the way he's able to kind of take real world occurrences, what's going on, what fans are talking about, and then interweave it into the kayfabe. And instead of it turning into like a worked shoot, it's turning into a shoot worked, you know? And like, he's taking real stuff and turning them into kayfabe.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and it's not quite like, it's not Brian Pillman-esque. It's not like he's you're not wondering where the line is. You know that he is still, for lack of a better term, a character within the confines of New Japan's kayfabe. Like, he's not crossing that line, but he's still talking about, you know, what's going on with Mox. He's talking about what's going on with AEW. He's talking about Tanahashi, you know. During the press conference, there was like a really uncomfortable moment with him and Sugabayashi, where I was like, bro, you can get fucking fired. Like,
did you see the tweets of him and Obari?
Yeah, I saw him and Obari. Obari was saying, like, I should have fired you. And I'm like, are they working or are they shooting? You know, I don't know.
So yeah, we had a couple questions here. Discord Daddy MJ says, it's a Never title and what it represents, where the true heart and soul of NJPW resides.
That's interesting, because there was a time where I would have said like the Never title was just the third string, you know, kind of a belt that, for lack of a better term, didn't need to exist. You know, it was just taking up space, and it's gone through so many transitional phases and representations of what it means. And for these guys, yeah, I mean, the type of match they had and the promos that they were cutting in the lead up to it definitely seems to represent a certain aspect of, you know, what we deem in modern times strong style.
Yeah, and I thought also that played into the story too. I wanted to mention, Gabe Kidd, he was doing moves of, some of the top Never champions. He was doing some of Shibata's moves and the Rainmaker into the slap. He did Ishii's Brain Buster. So he was doing a lot of, the big, like, Never champions moves on the Shingo, which I thought also kind of played into this whole story of wanting to prove that, Never should be the true, IWGP and this kind of heart and soul behind the promotion. Next question here from Def Triangle 720 says, should Gabe challenge for the Never title again at Dominion?
I would be in favor of that. I feel like Shingo is a really great mountain for him to climb over and prove himself. And, for a lot of people, they see Shingo as like this, this bar that needs to be cleared. And I feel like he could really make him. So possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that, have that big rematch and finally him get that big win. Especially it seems like, the War Dogs have a lot of momentum right now. They're already signed. They're all starting to win some championships. So giving him a big moment at Dominion would be cool. Rambone says those never style matches that Shingo, Ishii, etc. put on get the old heart pumping at the very least.
Yeah.
So moving on here to the semi-main event, we had the IWGP Global Heavyweight title match. David Finlay defeats the wanted man Nick Nemeth to become the new and two-time IWGP Global Champion. Again,
I'm just a little perplexed about what we're doing exactly because, again, it's the same type of recap that I'm doing for many of the titles, and it's a problem across the board with New Japan right now. When you're looking at the way the TV title was booked and you're looking at the way the tag team titles were booked and this belt in particular as well. And you're like, there's a lot of flip flopping going on. I know that there were those rumors that people have, it's been the scuttlebutt and people are talking about, different major players from outside that were these Western stars like Nick Nemeth. And the rumor was that there were certain concessions that needed to be met in order for them to, come work New Japan or whatever. And I'm not saying that's the case. I don't have confirmation on that, but a lot of other, people have talked about it and it's out there. People, have speculated. And I am just wondering, like, is this the whole run? Like, this guy won the title from Tanahashi, won the title from David Finlay after David Finlay had just won it at Wrestle Kingdom, and then turns around and has the one match with Tanahashi, and then the next night drops it back to David Finlay. I don't know. And looking at the booking here, I'm like, did we sacrifice Tsuji so that David Finlay could turn around and beat Nick Nemeth? That's just strange to me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and I feel like they wasted the whole momentum they built with Finlay. Like, his big screen says Goat Slayer. He was a guy that beat Will Ospreay and got Will out of the company. And
twice.
Yeah. And I know that, Hikuleo and Eddie Kingston are quote unquote responsible for Jay White leaving, but Finlay was the last guy that attacked Jay White before he was done with New Japan. So that they've given him all these kind of big moments. He took Jay White out. He beat Will Ospreay twice on the way out. Like they positioned him as a top foreigner, and then they blew that all the way just because, former WWE, Nick Nemeth comes in. We have to push him, and you have him beat the guy who beat your top foreigner, and then he barely works any dates. He has this, allegedly this contract where he has to face Tanahashi in the title defense first. Like, if he was just going to lose, why couldn't he just defend against Ishii? He would have been at least V2 in Chicago. It's like there's just so many questionable booking decisions with all these guys like Nemeth and Riddle.
Did you see his promo the night before?
Post-match?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So he started saying a lot of really promising things, which, if I got worked, sure, work me, brother, whatever. But he was talking about like how, a lot of people had said a lot of things about his title reign and his title win and made a lot of, assertions and speculations. And he was like saying that he was here to stay. Like, that's how much respect he has for this company and for this belt, and that he doesn't plan to just, he wants to turn it into a global title. He has plans to defend it abroad, take it with him, work in other places. And all he was first waiting for was the initial defense against Tanahashi. And after that, sky's the limit. And he also said that he's like planning to sign with New Japan. Like he kind of threw that in there too, which is funny because I've heard him talk in other, I've seen excerpts from podcasts that he's done where he was like, I was in in WWE for 19 years, signed there, and I don't want to be signed anywhere. I want to have the freedom to like kind of come and go and do what I'm doing, which good on him. But then in this promo, he basically said like that he was ready to make a commitment to New Japan, and that threw a little bit of like alarm bells. And lo and behold, turns out the next night he loses, and it feels, we don't know, but it feels like this is the end of his run, which I'm like, is this what we were doing? People can say all they want about New Japan getting hoed by AEW. And trust me, I'm right there with you. There's definitely issues with that, with the power dynamics of that relationship. But the one thing that New Japan has never failed to do, especially under Gedo, is bend over backwards when it comes to ex-WWE stars who hit the free market. And they've shown this time and time again that they're willing to just bend over when it comes to these dudes. And that's what they did here. They like brought a bunch of ex-WWE guys in for very short-term deals that I'm sure were not small money deals, and give them every concession in the world. And it didn't turn business around. It didn't boost things. I don't know what I can't say, I don't have the numbers, but we can look at the attendances, and they're not what they need to be, especially for this tour in particular, where Moxley and Nick Nemeth are the guys headlining. And it's a shame.
Yeah. And you look at the U.S. business. I mean, I'm sure Windy City Riot would have drawn the same without Nemeth and Ali on those cards.
And Riddle.
Because
I don't know. I feel like Nick Nemeth might have helped a little bit there, but that's a different market too.
Right. I feel like Chicago was all in on Moxley and Naito as that big title main event. And you look at Resurgence coming up. I mean, I think they're close to 3,000 people. I mean that's, I guess, pretty good for a non-WWE, non-AEW company, but that's not, this huge big number. You would think if you're bringing all these big, U.S. guys that you would get more people.
I do think that they're close to a sellout for that building, though, or at least for the setup that they have. I could check with WrestleTix, but I think it's a successful show, for what it is. But at the end of the day, I'm just wondering, like, from a booking perspective, like to turn around and let these guys come in, have these brief matches. The matches were not blow away. They didn't do big business, and it hurts the credibility of the guys that have to lose to them, and there's a lot of New Japan characters right now who are in the backstage comments, and they're talking about Jon Moxley and him not being on every tour and all that. And there's some validity there for sure. But the one thing that they're not able to talk about is the big money deals that these guys came in and were able to get, and big stars having to do, jobs to these guys and, in some cases not get the win back, or as of yet, not get the win back. But Dave Finlay did get the win here. I thought that this match, personally, this was a weaker match between the two of them than the one they had. I don't remember where was that? Was that New Beginning?
I think that was New Beginning in Osaka or Sapporo, one of those.
Okay. And just over 15 minutes. I don't know that these guys have the strongest chemistry. I don't know what it is, but the match was fine. I mean, there was a lot of action. There just seemed to be like a lack of gravity to what was going on there, and the crowd didn't really seem to be connected to it in the same way that they were to the Tanahashi match the night before.
Yeah, the crowd just got done watching that awesome Gabe and Jingo match. I don't know. I like this match better than their New Beginning match. I don't know. I felt it was a little bit more aggressive. Finlay waited at the ramp at the entrance to attack Nemeth, and they started with a brawl and eventually got back in the ring. And I thought it was a pretty aggressive, hard-hitting matchup. It wasn't anything blow away, but I don't know. For me, I liked it better than the previous matchup. And Nemeth went for the danger zone towards the end. Finlay held onto the ropes, hit the super kick for a near fall. Then Finlay comes back with the power bomb, hits a second one, and then the overkill knee strike, and gets the win here and becomes a 2-time global champion.
And he beat him like basically completely clean.
Yeah. Outside of the brawl stuff on the outside, there wasn't that much interference there. And so, yeah, pretty much clean victory here. Gets the title back. Nemeth kind of, he's walking back dejected after the match, holding his face and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we'll see if he comes back. I mean, he's not booked for Resurgence, and I guess we'll see what his future holds. We had a few questions here. Dr. Lariat says, with the only Reiwa Gen guy getting pushed being David Finlay, do you think he ends up being the one to beat Mox?
I don't think that David Finlay is a Reiwa generation guy.
Yeah, he's older than those guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in the system he was in their system just as long as like Juice Robinson and Jay White, Yeah. Just because he's just now in the past couple of years started to get that push, I don't think, and it's coinciding with the return of these guys from the Reiwa generation. I don't consider him part of that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely that Jay White class generation. He's getting the push now, but I don't think he's going to beat Mox now that he's global champion.
And I've seen people try to throw like Hanare into that group too. And I again, he's been around for years and years and years. I don't think he fits that mold either. In terms of beating Mox, I think that depending on when the timing of this question was asked, I think we all kind of thought that maybe, I don't know if I thought he was going to beat Mox, but I thought he was going to face Mox, but now I don't even think that's happening.
I don't think so either. Death Triangle 720 says, do you think the Nemeth and Riddle runs are over?
I don't know. The fact that they're not on Resurgence is kind of interesting. Riddle seems to be primarily working for MLW in terms of like home promotion, and then Nick Nemeth's home promotion is primarily Impact at this point. Dave had said that Riddle was expected to work more shows for New Japan at one point, and I don't know how valid that is. Mm-hmm. Usually he's right, but I don't know. To me, it feels like they both might be done for now, which is interesting because I've heard speculation from people talking about like, whether or not Nick Nemeth was going to do G1 and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't think he's doing G1. I don't think he's coming back, honestly.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he does G1, and I don't think he's coming back. I feel like, he dropped the belt, especially, part of this too could be him winning the AAA title as well. And, New Japan does not play nice with AAA and the politics there. So that could have been an issue as well. But I could.
Did you hear Jeff Cobb mention that on commentary?
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't say AAA, but he said, winning titles in Mexico, and like Chris Charleston was like, X-nay on the Mexico, eh?
Yeah, he's like, yeah. So I'm sure that also play into it maybe. But yeah, I think that his run could be over. And we had a question from Discord Daddy MJ says, letter grade for Nick Nemeth's NJPW run.
C?
Yeah, I was C. Yeah, C minus.
I was gonna say C minus too, but I didn't want to. I don't want to be. I felt like I was a little too negative on last week's show, so I didn't want to be that guy. But I'm like, I don't know. It wasn't that strong. I mean, but he had some okay matches.
Yeah, it was fine. It's not like he had any 1-star duds or anything. Like there were fine matches, but he also didn't have any match of the year contenders. He didn't really work any compelling programs. Like he wasn't there that often.
You want to hear something that's weird? I saw that there was a Taguchi Japan. You know what I'm gonna say?
Yeah, Taguchi Japan Nemeth shirt.
Did they team together? Yeah,
remember when Tanahashi got hurt, it was supposed to be Tanahashi and Nick Nemeth, but it ended up being Nemeth and Taguchi.
Right.
That was the only time they teamed.
Did he wear Taguchi Japan? No. I'm like, wait. First off, Taguchi Japan basically doesn't exist anymore, and then suddenly they're throwing Nick Nemeth's name on a jersey from Taguchi Japan. It was so fucking weird. Like, where did this marketing come from?
Taguchi, man, thinking about check.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, that brings us to the main event of the evening for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. The Deaf Rider Jon Moxley defeats Sold Out Ren Narita 25 minutes and 18 seconds.
You know, Jeremy, a couple things. So let me collect my thoughts. So in the early stages of this match, Ren Narita has his cohorts from House of Torture. They come out, and it was Yujiro and Kanemaru, right? And they come out, and you know they're doing whatever. I can't.
Sho and Kanemaru.
Okay. So Sho and Kanemaru come out, and Umino was at ringside, and he gets involved, and they end up kind of blasting him. They put him in handcuffs, and he gets sent to the back. Mm-hmm. And I understand that later on he gets cut free and everything, and makes a valiant return and plays a key role in Mox winning the match. But to me, they made him look very weak in the early stages of this match, which I don't think to me, if I'm going to have him be the next title challenger, I don't know if that's what I would have wanted to do there, you know? Mm-hmm. I also thought it was interesting how in front of the cameras, Umino and Mox are still very much playing nice. But when Mox was out of town, Umino was talking, you know, a totally different way about the guy in the backstage comments. So that was interesting. Then at a certain point, I know this match was filled with a lot of shenanigans, but there was a certain point in the match where they started actually working. And I was like, you know what? Yes, this isn't the greatest match in the world, you know, admittedly, but there is this thing where Narita works really, really hard, even in these types of matches, even when he's kind of saddled with this gimmick and everything like that, where he's still making a go of it. And I was for a majority of the match, I was like, you know what? Yeah, there was a lot of cheating. Yeah, there was ref bumps. Yeah, there was outside interference, but like these guys are actually having a good match, and I'm enjoying it, and it's delivering more than I was expecting. Then the lights went out, and that's when I was like, oh, fuck this match. Like, and that wasn't even, you know, and that was just another layer of cheating and there was more on top of it as time went on. And like it, you know, you had to have interventions from Desperado and then intervention from Shota Umino and everything. And, I don't know, again, just overkill. We've talked about these House of Torture main events where it's overkill. I know in the buildings that the fans are reacting to what they're seeing. It's hard for me to gauge whether that is a good heat or bad heat. You know, the one thing I will say for better or worse, having Narita and Jon Moxley at the top of this card didn't seem to draw. And maybe some of that is on the way New Japan has booked Narita thus far up to this point. You know, it might be a situation where, you know, and I'm not saying Moxley is a massive draw in Japan, mind you, but he might need a good dance partner, somebody that's believable to do that type of business. And Ren Narita at this stage is probably not that guy. But, you know, again, we complained in the past about them not giving the young generation a go of things. So it's like, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place. But ultimately, Jon Moxley does pick up the win here. In the post match, I didn't love the interaction between Umino and Moxley because Umino tries to shake his hand. Moxley doesn't shake his hand. Moxley turns his back on him, and Umino just kind of, you know, walks out of the ring. And maybe this is part of a longer story as we're going to see that development. But like, to me, Umino just kind of looked like a bitch.
Yeah, you know, Moxley's the whole thing. You know, next week, you know, we're not friends. We're not going to be friends when that bell rings. And, Yeah, he kind of little broed Umino. I also did not like that Evil was also in there staring at Jon Moxley for a long time as well. So
I didn't even think about that.
hopefully that is not signs of things to come. But yeah, I was very frustrated watching this matchup, especially like you said, you get the points where like, all right, Narita's actually wrestling. He's hitting, the suplexes, and he's hitting hard, and they're having this good back and forth. And then, yeah, the lights go out, and Evil and Nidro come out, and it's like, here we go again. And I get it. Some people like the House of Torture. It's supposed to be heat, but I'm like, man, this is not what I want from the IWGP World Title match. Like, we used to be a proper country. And this title used to, mean something, and it used to be, you're going to get these incredible main events. And, we had Gabe and Shingo a few matches ahead, trying to restore the feeling and having a banger. And it's like, when you come down to this, and it's like, man. And, I've seen comments from Japanese fans that when this match was announced, they're like, what has Narita done to prove he deserves the title? He seems to be IWGP level. And it goes to what you said, like, they didn't really push him as a credible challenger. I mean, yeah, he beat Zach in the New Japan Cup, and he's had he beat Suzuki at Windy City Riot. But prior to that, I mean, Moxley had beaten this guy in the preview tag before that, and he hasn't won clean, and they have not done a good job of making him a credible IWGP title challenger. I think Umino, they've given him some wins, but even Umino's lost a lot. And we want these young guys to get shots, but at the same time, they need to push these young guys to make them look credible threats. And that's going to hurt going forward. And I don't know who's going to be next on deck after Umino, but yeah, we do need to get some credible, stronger challengers there that people believe. And in the meantime, build these guys up so when they do challenge, it is credible and it's a great match.
Something kind of weird / interesting on both nights during the post-match comments, Jon Moxley just randomly threw in comments about Noah on both shows. So I don't know if there's going to be a development with the co-promotion between New Japan and Noah, where he's going to be expected to face somebody from that company, and he's dropping the hints right now. I don't know, but it just seems strange that he just randomly brought up both of those. I also kind of, I think it's a little bit frustrating. Now, I understand that it's tough because on the one hand, when it comes to Jon Moxley, like to a certain respect, we were not even necessarily expecting him to work some of these bigger shows on this particular tour. We thought we wouldn't see him again until like Resurgence and then maybe Dominion and Forbidden Door. But they booked him for the show, so that's great. But then the entire feud had to be carried by Umino and Narita. And the story became about those two guys and less so about Moxley. And in the past, now granted, Moxley got on the plane, he made it here, but in the past, Moxley has done a lot of promotion for his feuds in New Japan that he was passionate about. And there, you didn't get those VTRs. You didn't have him, cutting promos. You didn't have interconnected stuff from the television in AEW that matches the kayfabe here. So it's like kind of just very disconnected the whole time, which I think is a little bit frustrating.
Yeah. Oh, that's some questions here from this matchup here. Reddit user AEW 2019 says, what do you think the path for Dominion and Forbidden Door is currently with Mox and the belt?
Oh, man, that's a really tough one because I think we were sort of, guesstimating that all roads were leading to Finlay, but Finlay's got the white title now. I think we're going to get to it here in just a moment. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I think he is going to beat Umino this coming Saturday. And then where are we going?
Yeah, I think the next two challengers, just kind of based on what I'm seeing, is going to be Zack Sabre Jr. and Konosuke Takeshita. So Sabre has a singles match with Tanahashi at Resurgence, and he talked about, I want to prove I'm the face of the company. I have to beat the president. So I can see him beating Tanahashi and then challenging at one of those shows. And then plus, after the Hobbs match, Konosuke came on stage, did the belt motion. So I could see Konosuke challenging as well.
You think he'd be the challenger? See, my question when it came to the Takeshita thing is like he a challenger for Forbidden Door, or is that more of like an AEW television type of deal?
They could do that at Double or Nothing. That's coming up at the end of this month.
See, I wasn't even sure what their next pay-per-view was. Yeah,
so they're in Vegas at the end of this month, Double or Nothing. So you could do him and Konosuke there, then him and Sabre at Dominion, and then I don't know who you would do at Forbidden Door.
If he's still champion by then.
True.
My whole thing is like, I feel like if Zach challenges for that title, he needs to win it. And I think it would be extremely demoralizing to think that Zack Sabre Jr. loses another title shot at this point.
Yeah.
But you did bring up a good point about, him challenging Tanahashi and everything. Plus they had that feud that was supposed to take place over the U.S. title pre-pandemic, and it never did happen.
Yeah, plus there's history with the Blackpool Combat Club and Sabre. He's faced Claudio. He's faced Danielson twice now. So I think it could make sense to do Mox at Forbidden Door. Wukong 901 says, how does the prospect of CSJ challenging Mox seem now after Zach challenged Tana for Resurgence? Would it be a fascinating idea? Because if Zach would win, who would he face at Forbidden Door? Claudio? Brian?
I guess he's saying, if Zach would win, then who would he face? Yeah, I mean, those are possibilities. And I think he's right along in the same vein of thought that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see him if they don't want to do the title match right away, him facing Claudio first, getting the win back there, and building up to facing Mox. Let's Commission 7252. Did you guys love the Austin and Rock stare down from Evil and Moxley? I'm so ready for that big Dominion main event with Moxley versus Evil for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. President Evil heading into the G1 with the gold.
That is possible.
Boy.
One thing, I heard some I don't remember what show it was, but I was listening to somebody talk about the trajectory of Naito and him dropping the title to Moxley. And, I know we've been very much against the idea that Moxley be the one that regains this title, but there is something that they said made sense to me. And basically what they were saying was that Naito's not going to win the G1 again this year, but you have to imagine that Naito is very likely going to wind up in the main event of the Tokyo Dome, just because on paper he's the biggest star New Japan has. So it's very likely. I mean, a lot of people think that that's the case. And if you expect him to be in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom, that would necessitate him winning that title back before Wrestle Kingdom. And then when you kind of combine that with the idea of him wanting to do the stadium, the baseball field show and the golden roll call, and the idea that he needs to get his win back from Moxley, the stars start aligning up a little bit better for you to think like he might be the one to dethrone Mox.
I'm fine with Naito winning it. I just don't want Evil to win.
I'm not okay with Mox winning it because for me, the whole appeal and idea of having Mox win this title is to build up a young guy to win it. And then in my opinion, it would be a better route for one of those guys to face Naito down the line when they've become more established. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I'm just, if the choice is,
go ahead.
If the choice is Naito or Evil, I would rather Naito get it back.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why we might end up with Evil is just, again, look at the landscape of New Japan. Where are the stars?
Yeah.
And at this point in time, as people like to point out, House of Torture to some degree has cachet. They are over. Evil does have good reactions, and that might be where we're headed to some degree. I find it hard to think that Evil would be the guy that wins the belt again, but he did it before.
Yeah. Question here from Rambo, and he says, Dontaku felt very uneven. There were some real highs, but there was a lot of middling or poor stuff. Also, is this a cause for concern, given the G1 this summer looks like it will have 32 entrants? I am worried that the roster is stretched too thin and things are watered down right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and the wording that you used there when you said that it was uneven, that's kind of the words I've been looking for all night when I've been trying to describe this stuff. The G1's not the G1 anymore. The point in time where it was widely considered to be the most prestigious and important tournament in all of wrestling, those days are gone as of now. And it's a very simple formula. It's what you described there. When you expand the field of entrance, but you lose the quality of wrestlers that you have working for your company, that waters down the tournament. What they need to do is reel it back in and focus on having a smaller field with a higher grade of wrestler. But the problem is it's so taxing on the guys to do, the 10 singles matches in that short period of time like they have. And people have probably to some degree gotten used to the lighter schedule that's brought upon by this new tournament. And then also they're able to do more shows. And at the end of the day, New Japan they live and die by the live gate. And it's like we said earlier in the show, it's a tough equation because it's like, do you want to do a smaller amount of shows that are potentially more lucrative, or, expand the amount of shows? And it's hard to say. You don't know what's going to be better for their bottom line. For me, I think that having higher quality across the board that's the answer, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of spots opened up. It's probably going to be, I think I counted today, like 7 or 8 guys that are not going to be in the tournament that were there last year. And so, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them doing 32. I think they should just go back to doing 20. I think with the schedule that's out, you could still end up doing 2 blocks of 10, and maybe they do the whole semifinal final thing like they're doing with Super Juniors with the A1 versus B2 kind of thing. I hope that's the route they go, because
that would be great.
This whole 32, and then you look at who we have left. I mean, we do have some good guys, but in order to get the tournament back to it being prestigious, it needs to be a thing of, it can't be a participation trophy. Not everybody can get in. It needs to be limited, only the best of the best. Your record, where you are in kayfabe, your accomplishments, that should all play into the fact of who gets booked in this thing to make it a very strong tournament.
Well, that is going to do it for our review of Dontaku. Let's get into Resurgence here. So we have the full announced card for this coming Saturday, May 11th. The pre-show is going to start with a strong survivor match. Adrian Quest will take on Matt Vandegrift. Also on the pre-show, Mustafa Ali will face off in one-on-one action with Leo Rush. On the main show, you have the Chaos Team, which I don't even know if Chaos still exists, but the Chaos Team of Rocky Romero, Tomohiro Ishii, and the DK, along with the DKC, taking on the House of Torture's Evil, Jack Perry, and Ren Narita. 4th match of the night, NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team titles are on the line as TMDK defend against the new Gorillas of Destiny. 5th match of the night, Fred Rosser and Tom Waller take on the West Coast Wrecking Crew in a grudge match. 6th match of the night, you have David Finlay and Kenta taking on LIJ's Naito and Tsuji. 7th match of the night, the Strong Women's titles on the line as Stephanie Vaquer defends against Alex Windsor. 8th match of the night, Tanahashi versus ESJ. 9th match of the night, Jeff Cobb versus Lance Archer for the world television title. 10th match of the night. The openweight titles on the line as Shingo defends against Yuya Uemura. The semi-main event, the strong openweight titles on the line as Eddie Kingston defends against Gabe Kidd in a no-rope last man standing match. And then your main event, the IWGP World Heavyweight titles on the line as Jon Moxley defends against Shota Umino.
Yeah, man, this is an absolutely stacked card. I mean, it seems like the U.S. shows the big ones are, outbooking the big domestic shows. Windy City Riot was great. Battle in the Valley was great. And here we have another really great stacked up card with a lot of title matches, a lot of built up feuds. This is going to be a pretty good show.
Yeah, I'm looking at the WrestleTix, and this was one day ago. So the current setup in the building that they have is for 3,000 and change, and they've got about 2,500 tickets distributed. So I know that building can sit more, but with the configuration that they're using, they're doing pretty good. And I don't know. I haven't looked at I don't know if they're using the upper deck or not, but yeah, very interesting. Yeah, this show is stacked, and it's kind of what we talked about earlier, where it's like, New Japan's gotten in the habit in Japan where they break up these shows over multiple nights on a tour to, benefit their bottom line by spreading it across multiple tour dates in different cities or what have you, multiple nights. And then in the States, they've kind of contracted and they're having these bigger shows. And, but then again, this is still, 2,500. It's not that different in terms of the bodies in the building compared to Dontaku, but that's people paying in dollars, not yen.
Yeah. And you're getting a bigger card here.
Yeah, but I mean, you got the Never title, the Strong title, the World title, the Television title, the Strong Women's belt, the Strong Tag Team titles. This show on paper is actually looking a lot stronger than I had anticipated it was going to be. I know that they've done a good job presenting a few of the potential matches that were going to be on the show and announcing them ahead of time. Making it pretty clear that Jon Moxley was going to be on the show and the Eddie Kingston Gabe Kidd match. But I didn't realize that this many of these big matches was actually going to happen here. One other part of their strategy, if you think about it, this is also on pay-per-view for $20 a pop on New Japan World. And for us here in the States, it's $20 US. So, there have been plenty of shows in the past where they've charged for pay-per-view and I've looked at them and I've been like, hell no, not happening. But this is one where you're like, yeah, that's probably for $20. That's kind of a steal for this show. And probably worth it, honestly.
Yeah. Let's do some quick predictions here. I guess we'll start with the world title match. I mean, I think we're in agreement here that Moxley's obviously retaining here.
I think Moxley's retaining here, and I'm holding firm to my prediction that later in the year, or even maybe early next year, Shota Umino will rebound from this loss and be the one that beats Jon Moxley.
Yeah, I think a story of him going to G1, winning G1, and challenging Moxley at Wrestle Kingdom would be great.
Mm-hmm.
A strong openweight title match. I think Gabe Kidd is gonna beat Eddie. Eddie's been on this losing streak, dropping all his titles. Lost the ROH title to Mark Briscoe, lost the Continental to Okada. So I could see Gabe Kidd finally getting a big win here, winning the strong title.
I agree with you for the exact same reasons that you laid out.
TV title, I think Cobb will get a first.
You skipped the Never title.
Oh, Never, yep. Shingo and Uemura. I think Shingo retaining there. This
is a tough one, and one that I'm questionable on the booking of it because Uemura just won KOPW. Why is he challenging for the Never title if he's not going to win it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And again, it goes to that theory that I had where I feel like they need to just merge these titles, but knowing New Japan, they're not going to do that. They're going to do something else, anything other than the logical thing that you would hope that they would do. I think Shingo also retains here. Otherwise, why wouldn't Uemura's title also be on the line?
Right. Unless Uemura wins, then Shingo tries to challenge for like both titles in a rematch.
They could do that. I mean, at this point, we pretty much don't. We've predicted that the strong title will change hands, and then that's all so far. So yeah.
Then TV title, I think Cobb is going to retain against Archer.
I do too. It's going to be interesting to see these two bigger guys, see how they link up with one another in terms of their chemistry and their style of work. But, 15 minutes, they're going to have to go balls to the wall basically for this one.
Yeah. ZSJ and Tana, I think, like I mentioned earlier, Zach's going to win.
Zach gets that win back, yeah.
Recur and Alex Windsor. I think Stephanie's going to retain here.
I think she retains, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if Alex Windsor won.
Same. I mean, she's kind of the new girl that they're pushing on strong, and yeah, I could see if they want to make a real splash of her as a kind of the face of strong for the women's division. An upset win here could be the right move. Then Finley and Kenta, Naito and Tsuji. I'm gonna go with LIJ winning. Potentially that sets up maybe Naito versus Finley for the global title.
Oh, that's a good call. You could even do potentially Tsuji and Finley return match if you wanted to go that way as well. Mm-hmm. Some bigger names here in this match. So it's four guys that you struggle to see who's going to take the pinfall, which is rare in New Japan. So that's always a sign of something, Yeah.
I think Rosser and Lawler are going to win against the West Coast Wrecking Crew. Unless it's a ruse all along and Tom jumps this man.
So Rosser is Sting and Tom Lawler is Ric Flair, and they've, the Four Horsemen have been playing them all along.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's the case. West Coast, every time I think West Coast Wrecking Crew should win, they don't. And I do think they should win here, which probably means they're not gonna.
Strong tag titles. I think TMDK is going to retain, but
they should. But you just never know.
The way they've been booking, man, it's like the hot potato. This whole tag division. Like I think TMDK is going to retain, but I would not be surprised if GOD wins because of this whole 4-team thing they're doing.
Yeah, they could do that if they want to hot potato those belts, but it really depends on the status of the GOD guys. Are they staying? Are they signing? Who knows? But I think TMDK probably retains.
Yeah. Opener, I'm going to guess that House of Torture wins with Scapegoat being back there and DKC as a clear pin eater there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you got Jack Perry aligned with House of Torture here, but he's also part of the New Elite, so some weird connectivity there. The pre-show match, Mustafa Ali versus Leo Rush, we had been speculating on what type of match that'd be, and it is clearly a junior versus junior. Leo Rush was a guy that we haven't seen in quite a while in New Japan, kind of just fell off the face of the earth. Now he's back. I think it's interesting that this is a pre-show match, and it's maybe not a bad one to do, just because those are two names that are very well known and they can really go. And if you're trying to utilize that pre-show as a means to advertise the pay-per-view and get people to tune in and buy, that's probably the best one you could do, essentially.
Yeah. I'm going to guess Ali probably wins it.
No, Leo Rush is breaking his undefeated streak right here on the pre-show.
Then the other pre-show match is going to be the Strong Survivor match. Young Fuego, Adrian Quest against Matt Vandegrift. Personally, I would like to see Adrian Quest win because he's Raw.
It depends if it's fit Adrian Quest or flabby Adrian Quest. We've seen both, so I don't know. But, Matt Vandegrift is like one of their dojo guys. I don't really know what the status of Adrian Quest is, but he is an OG strong guy. So I'd like to see more of him. I do think he's a really good wrestler. I know we got some questions here.
Yeah, Last Question 7252 says, with the Resurgence card being announced, is it weird that most of the matches for Dominion might be teased on this show with the Global Tag, World TV, and World Championship?
Yeah, I think it is weird because it's like we're going into Super Juniors. So this card does not give me heavy preview for Dominion vibes. It feels like a self-contained like pay-per-view, but he's probably right. It probably does need to set up for Dominion, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be seeds planted. There's also the New Japan Soul Tour. I'm not sure if they're going to do any big title matches on that tour before Dominion.
When is that taking? Is that before Dominion?
Yeah, that's after Super Juniors. So it's the formerly Casino Road Tour.
Okay, then we're fine because we've got time to still build something for Dominion. So never mind. Scratch what I said.
I mean, they could still plant seeds here, but
somewhat, yeah.
I just don't know how. I don't know how big the New Japan Soul Tour is going to be.
No, agreed. But it's not going to be like I was thinking. Like everything needed to be solidified here.
Gotcha.
Which is not the case.
Yeah. MJ says, what do you make of Leo Rush and Mustafa Ali being on the opener? Will this be a free match, and will they use it to draw buys?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what you were saying there. Dragon Master Adam on Twitter says, Zach having a special singles match against Tana. Assuming he wins, do you think he could be the one to challenge Moxley at Dominion?
Yep.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. We talked about that. Def Triangle 720 says, do you think it's a mistake to have the Shota versus Mox match happen in the States instead of Dominion, where their story started?
I do think that there's some, there's a poetic, sort of thing going on there where maybe it would have made sense to do it at Dominion. I don't know. I don't feel like they've done a great job building that match in Japan just yet, as of now. Whereas like in the States, it almost feels like the Moxley Shooter thing matters more to the Western fans than it does over in Japan at this point right now.
Yeah, I feel like the Western fan base really got invested in that storyline and, kind of helped Shooter get over to a degree. And so, yeah, I think it's more of a, Western New Japan fan lore than it is for the domestic fans.
Well, that is going to do it for Resurgence. Also coming up, we have the Best of the Super Junior 31. The blocks were announced. We're going to go over those again briefly. So the A block, you have El Desperado, Kevin Knight, Bushi, Teton, TJP, Kosei Fujita, Blake Christian, Clark Connors, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Hayata. And then in the B block, Kushida, Hiromu, Doki, Francesco Akira, Robbie Eagles, Taiji Shimori, Drilla Maloney, Sho, Dragon Daya, and Ninja Mac. And we had some questions here. But Jeremy, how did you want to go over? I know we were short on time and it's a lot.
Yeah. So we don't have the leisure in previous years where we would, go through each guy and give each guy the chance and all this stuff. So how about out of the A block, Josh, who are your favorites who you think could come out of the A block?
Okay. And again, keep in mind, they're doing the format this year where 2 finalists will come out of each block. So, I don't think Hayata has a chance. I don't think Kanemaru has a chance. I would say Clark Connors is a maybe. I think Fujita is a strong candidate. I would say no to Blake Christian. No, I would say no to Teton since they already went with him last year, but you never know. Mm-hmm. They seem to be building up Bushi for something. I would say no, but you just, I think Kevin Knight's a no. I think the strongest candidates out of A block are Despy, unbelievably Bushi, TJP, and Clark and Fujita and Connors. So that's like I'm like there's 5 guys in there that I could see as being potential finalists.
Yeah, those are all good picks there. There's a clear story with TJP and his whole becoming the captain. I can definitely see him clenching one of those spots there. I could see Teton coming down to, like, if he wins his last, he goes in. If he loses, he's out. So he could be a fringe guy there. Yeah, I think the other guys you mentioned have good chances. Rambone says TJP or the Oswong will lure triumph.
Well, another thing too is Desperado is main eventing more nights in this block than anybody else, and so that might be something.
Yeah,
I haven't looked at the finals in terms of like who's facing who, so I'm a little bit unspoiled in that regard. But I kind of think, if I'm just going off my gut, the top two people I would say would be like Fujita and Desperado.
that would be great. All right, how about the B block?
Well, I think Kushida is a no-hoper. Hiromu and Doki and Francesco Akira and Robbie. Wow. The B block is a lot stronger than the A block, just in terms of talent across the board. There's going to be better matches in the B block, I think, and potential for guys to win. I could definitely see this being a more parity-based block. That's tough because you got Hiromu there, and Hiromu's like kind of always in play.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe
he has been on a losing streak, though.
But yeah, he's been on that losing streak, and maybe he they're probably going to do the story where he snaps it during Super Juniors, but I don't think he's winning it again. But it's hard to imagine he's not one of the guys in the finalists.
Yeah. I mean, I would really love to see Robbie Eagles get into a semifinal spot. Rambones agrees. He says he has his money on Robbie Eagles. I think that's a great name there. First time we'll see Robbie in New Japan this year. Yeah, I would love for him to be one of those guys in the semifinals.
I think Francesco Akira has an outside shot.
Mm-hmm.
One of the finalists.
I mean, what about Drilla? He pinned Naito. I mean,
yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like, yeah, Maloney. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, stacked.
It shows the fucking champion. Like we kind of forget about that. He's in that block. It's tough, man. That's a stack block.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that the two finalists coming out of this block for me, I'm just going to say Hiromu and Francesco Akira.
I'm going to go with Hiromu and Eagles.
And who did you have in the A block?
I think I want to go with, TJP and Desperado.
Gotcha.
Rambone says Akira versus TJP in the semifinals. They are doing A1 versus B2 format, right?
Yeah,
yes, they are. And that could be an interesting story with the whole TJP being the captain and saying that one of Catch 2-2 will win. So, yeah, you could end up maybe TJP wins the A block, Akira gets in B2. That could be interesting.
Relentless controversial. Relentless HT asks controversial question here. Since Dragon Dia has good potential and could show out in Best Super Juniors, but do you think New Japan should have selected Shun Skywalker as the Dragon Gate representative, given he is now the biggest heel in the promotion?
He's probably too big of a star for this spot. I mean, this was a replacement for Taguchi. You got to imagine Taguchi wasn't going to get a bunch of points. Dragon Dia is probably not going to get a bunch of points, and so you couldn't put that big of a star in here just as a replacement. If he was originally booked, then he probably could have been booked fine, but as a replacement, no.
Yeah, and we're far from Dragon Gate experts, but I mean, my understanding is Shun Skywalker is one of their top stars. They're not going to send one of their top stars to this tournament unless they're going to, get a very prominent position in the standings. Rambo and Slam Pig also asked, the Best Super Juniors has a lot of outside participants. Which of the outsiders do you think will have the most impressive showing from an in-ring perspective? Who will do the best in terms of point totals?
I think from an in-ring perspective, I'm going to go with Ninja Mac in the B block. I think he's going to use this opportunity to really show out. He's a really incredible, talented high flyer. I think he's going to have a lot of exciting matchups. And then from a point standpoint, I probably would say,
I do agree with the Ninja Mac thing. I think that he has the potential to show out the best and get over, but I think Hayata will probably be the guy that they give the most points to from the outside companies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unless we're counting Teton, which is, but he's a quasi shared talent at this point.
Yeah. So we'll have the first 2 nights of action before we record next week. So on the same day as Resurgence, the tournament kicks off May 11th in Chiba. We'll have a 10 match card here. So both blocks in action. Night 1 open up with Francesco Akira versus Dragon Daya, Bushi versus Hayata, Robbie Eagles versus Ninja Mac, Kanemaru versus Fujita, Sho versus Maloney, Connors versus Christian, Taiji Ishimori versus Doki, TJP versus Kevin Knight, Kushida versus Hiromu in a semi-main event, and then the main event will be Teton versus El Desperado. And then May 13th in Korakuen Hall, another 10-match card. We'll have Blake Christian versus Kevin Knight, Akira versus Ninja Mac, Hayata versus Clark Connors, Robbie Eagles versus Drilla Maloney, TJP versus Kanemaru, Ishimori versus Dragon Daya, Bushi versus Teton, Kushida versus Sho, Desperado versus Fujita, and the main event will be Hiromu versus Doki.
And we'll be covering that next week. It's going to be kind of crazy. May 11th having, 2 major shows on the same day. So good luck to us and good luck to you guys listening.
Seriously.
The UJPW All Together show for the Earthquake benefit event took place earlier today. Again, just running through those quick results. So House of Torture, Evil, Ren, and Yujiro, they defeated Tanahashi, Marufuji, and Takagi 8 minutes 50 seconds. Kano defeated Kosei Fujita in the only singles match on the card. Natsupoi and Starlight Kid defeated Queen's Quest, Azumi, and Miyu Amazaki. Daisuke Sakamoto and Tomohiro Ishii defeated Jeff Cobb and Masa Kitamiya. El Desperado, Hayata, Kota Minoura, Mao, and Ninja Mac. They defeated Alpha Wolf, Dragon Bane, Hiromu, Tetsuya Endo, and Yamato. The 6th match of the night, Kai and Taichi defeated Chris Brooks and Zack Sabre Jr. In the semi-main event, the Bullet Club War Dogs, David Finlay and Gabe Kidd, along with Jake Lee, defeated the LIJ team of Shingo, Naito, and Tsuji. And then in your main event, Keito Kiyomiya, Shota Umino, and Yuki Ueno defeated Konosuke Takeshita, Shun Skywalker, and Yuya Uemura, 23 minutes and 18 seconds. We had a question here from Dr. Larry. He says, with All Together being down to 4,000 from about 6,000 last year, is it safe to say wrestling in Japan is back to dark? Or is it just that fans know these events have zero bearing on what is happening in their home promotions?
I wouldn't say it's back to dark, but I think the industry as a whole has kind of been on shaky ground coming back from the pandemic. And with the yen being down, there's just been a lot of difficulties there. And who knows how much these tickets were and kind of what the whole financial state is going into this show.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good sign, obviously. And it's very... I don't know. I'm a little wary of the entire dynamic behind UJPW because it's supposed to be a shared venture and it's supposed to have bearing upon the kayfabe of the different companies and stuff. And to some extent, it has been built up that way. So, I mean, hats off to them, but it's not drawing well. It's drawing okay, but not super great, which is... there's diminishing returns on stuff like this, and they've done the cross promotion before already. So yeah, we'll see. Let's jump into the news. So late night, early morning over Saturday, May 4th, Sunday, May 5th, Japan Standard Time. There was a significant error that affected both New Japan's English and Japanese official websites. There was a emergency maintenance that had to take place. So New Japan basically apologized for the inconvenience over that time period. So if you try to log into the website, you might have had some issues. Hiroshi Tanahashi was interviewed by Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated. A few of the key quotes from the president of New Japan. He said, "This isn't the first time that the top title has been worn by an outsider." Speaking through a translator, he says, "Whoever can take it off of Moxley will have a big spotlight on them, and I hope they make the most of it." And then he also said, "Match quality multiplied by fame multiplied by promotion equals fans." I think this is a pretty simple algebra, which I tend to agree with that. Tangaloa is now in WWE, as we mentioned earlier on the show. So he's part of the bloodline. Goodbye to GOD. It's, another one bites dust. It seems like the GOD faction is the one thing I'm wondering is like, what the fuck's Jado going to do when this is all said and done? And then there was an official announcement, GHC title match on June 16th. The new champion, Kato Kiyomiya, will be taking on Gabe Kidd at Grand Ship 2024 in Yokohama. So following the main event of the All Together show, Gabe Kidd had come out and attacked the new champion, Kiyomiya, who just recently took the title off of El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., and challenged him to a title fight. So again, like I mentioned earlier on the show, Gabe Kidd kind of spread thin, having his sights set on a lot of different, targets all at once. And then there was also an announcement. We don't have it here in the news, but there is going to be I think on that same show, there's going to be a singles match between Tomohiro Ishii and Masa Kitamiya. That was also announced in the Fallout show.
That was announced. And I think also there's another LIJ versus Jake Lee and partner versus Good Looking Guys match coming up as well.
That is going to do it for the news.
Got some questions here. We'll run through these real quick and get to recommended match of the week. First from Dr. Lariat says, "I know you guys don't watch modern All Japan, but I do. After watching the Champion Carnival, All Japan's modern style is more akin to strong style, with the strikes and submissions are more shooty elements, while New Japan has a lot of that head droppy, big move stuff that Royal Road encompassed. I think with all the jumps and mixing in the 2000s, the overall style has changed in pro wrestling. What are your guys' takes on how modern styles shift, and have you guys open your heart gate to Dragon Gate, which has been the best booked Japanese promotion over the last decade?"
Well, no, I have not opened my heart gate because I don't have the time gate to to do that. One thing I will say is, I don't know, a lot of the diehard Dragon Gate coverage type people that are out there have said that the company isn't in its apex as of the past few years. So who knows? We'll see. I do agree with you. This is kind of like a dirty little secret, but a lot of the if we're getting to the nitty gritty of it, a lot of what New Japan does isn't technically classical strong style. Strong style is basically just a marketing term anyways, but from a historical perspective, when you talk about like what was the defining style of New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's not reflected in the wrestling that they do today. And I've talked, shout out to Rich Latta, a friend of the show. I've told him this for years, where I said that the style of wrestling that New Japan was doing in their golden era was basically just, for lack of a better term, in many ways, it was an evolution of the King's Road style. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more similar in presentation and style of work to that than it is to like what Riki Choshu did, Yeah.
And as far as like modern styles shifting, I think as time goes on, like styles evolve, athletes get faster, stronger. They're going to think of different ways, cooler stuff to do. We've seen the game elevate from high flyers like, the original Tiger Mask to like a guy like Will Ospreay today. And I think as, time moves forward, it's going to continue to see it shift and evolve and get faster, more high risk, and it's going to change. Next question here from Parfait Curious 3834. Who's next to join the Bloodline 2.0 besides Tangaloa? Chase Owens, Yujiro? I hope so.
maybe not. I don't know.
He also asks, open up spots for the G1 and push young lions. What say you?
Like Murashima and Kato?
No. I think back to what I was saying earlier. It needs to go back to being exclusive, prestigious. Like if you're a young lion that's not graduated, you shouldn't be in there. That's my thoughts. Also says, would Tony Khan allow the AEW World Title to be defended at next year's Wrestle Kingdom?
You never know. Possibly, who knows? But the one thing is Wrestle Kingdom almost always kind of coincides with one of the most important Dynamites of the year, that early January Dynamite that they have. So, the only time that the AEW champion has like ever wrestled in New Japan was when Chris Jericho was the champion and he came over and worked Tanahashi, which those two companies weren't even like on speaking terms or partnering in any way at the time, which was interesting. So I think it's highly unlikely, but you never know.
Yeah, I think Wrestle Kingdom is a Saturday this year, so that would give them enough time to send people over if they wanted to.
Maybe. I don't know who will be the champion at that time, but, we'll see.
Yeah. Barry Walsh says Tanahashi is in so many title feuds lately and had a bit of face off with Uemura the other day, so he's going for KOPW next. How long do you think he will hold the U30 belt for when he brings it back?
That's funny.
It says, most importantly, do you think the wrestlers themselves being more vocal about the AEW partnership and the perception of New Japan is to build for the Forbidden Door, or them just saying what they want? In the last few weeks, there have been comments from Gabe Kidd, Tsuji, and backstage after Satsuma no Kumi. Shota, they had some harsh words about New Japan letting it get to its stage where the champions are absent.
Well, in New Japan, there's a lot of leeway for the performers to speak their mind and to kind of, what was that one wrestling company? For them to control their narrative. But, how I mentioned earlier, like that Gabe Kidd sort of interworks the real life ongoings into the kayfabe. What are these guys going to do? I mean, look at the way that it looks between AEW and New Japan, and it's very like obvious what it looks like on paper, when it comes to all the different aspects of the relationship and the complaints. And I'm sure Japanese fans are talking about it, and the fans here in the West obviously are too. And it makes all the sense in the world why they would be bringing it up in the backstage comments, because what are they supposed to do, in light of everything that's happened, just not say anything about it and just pretend that everything is okay. And, at the same time, like, how are they supposed to get over, it makes all the sense in the world for them to acknowledge what's happening and then try to endear themselves and ingratiate themselves to the fan base by using these real life occurrences to try and get over and make themselves the ones that are championing the cause of elevating New Japan,
Yeah. And I don't know if it's part of the bill for Forbidden Door or not, but if Tony Khan and Gato were smart, they would use a lot of this stuff to build heat for Forbidden Door, especially with their people questioning the star power and what matches you can do. Like, use some of these guys and their comments to have personal issues and make some of the Forbidden Door matches a little bit more heated. This next question says, will there ever be another Tanahashi for New Japan? I know the new generation is very talented. Also, it looks... Tana took a long time to win the crowd over, but was part of his special appeal. His talent alone, his loyalty, or the fact he had a lot of the older generation still to slay in front of him. With a lot of the main card gone to AEW, does that hurt the new generation not having a Jay or Will or Okada to defeat? Or can they do it on the talent alone? Do you think any of them or anyone can ever be standing or have a legacy like Tanahashi has?
That's a tough question. I mean, people, it's a great question. So, when people talk about the Dark Ages, one thing that they don't always bring, they just make it seem like, okay, New Japan was at an apex and then they were at a lull and there was all this MMA going on and then Tanahashi saved them. And in a nutshell, that is what happened. But there's a lot more to that story in terms of the progression of their business. And a lot of this period that people deem as being the Dark Ages was actually still highly successful commercially, even if it wasn't being received well by the critics. They were doing business, and in terms of attendance and ticket sales, that was vastly superior than what we saw in some of their more profitable periods here in the recent golden age, and that's just the truth. So when Tanahashi did take over, I don't want to, it's hard to say because it's like, they went through a bad period for sure. But the truth of the matter is that bad period in terms of like how close the company was to like closing probably isn't as close to how close the company came to closing during the pandemic era just recently. And it's a little different. Tanahashi also was a special talent. You know what I mean? Like Tanahashi's Tanahashi. I mean, he's literally one of the all-time living greats. And we do have a lot of great talent in front of us. And I'm hoping one of those guys like steps up and can be that. But to find somebody that's that mix of talent and charisma and connection and having the it factor, it's hard to say. I do know that, the roster of guys that Tanahashi had to work with in his time was not what you would deem. You wouldn't sit there and say like, oh, he had a murderer's row of top end guys to work with during his heyday. He really didn't. It took time for guys to come back to the company and to work with him and stuff like that. And, the period that people talk about being a boom period, a lot of that was after he had already laid that groundwork. And yeah, I mean, he did have Nagata and he did have, Nakamura to work with, but there was, he was working,
Nakanishi,
Nakanishi, Giant Bernard, stuff like that. So it's tough. It's tough. And will anybody else ever have a legacy like Tanahashi? I mean, I don't know. Tanahashi's like on the, he's on the Mount Rushmore of New Japan. I don't know.
Once in a century talent,
Yeah.
Dark Soldier says, we've lost Jay. We've lost Osprey. We've lost
his questions.
What's that?
One of his questions.
Oh, yeah. Barry Walsh says, it was before my New Japan time, but what was Choshu to New Japan? He wasn't Inoki or Fujinami. He wasn't a musketeer. I know he booked, but he was a gatekeeper. What was his main role? Was he there to elevate the next gen or to be the main guy? I know he's a legend, but just to long-term viewers, what was he?
Riki Choshu was the biggest fucking star in in Japanese wrestling history at that point, basically. He was Japanese Stone Cold Steve Austin. Don't get me wrong. There is a difference between being the closest comp that you could probably in modern times like point to is like Naito, but like the reality is Choshu eclipses Naito in terms of how big a star Choshu was. Do some research on Choshu because we're short on time and I can't talk at length about what he did, but just quite simply one of the most revolutionary wrestlers in the history of modern professional wrestling. And somebody that shook up Japanese wrestling in both All Japan and New Japan in the 80s. And he was the biggest star. He was a bigger star. The only person I could probably point to that might have been a bigger draw in some ways is like Akira Maeda potentially, but like he wasn't the ace. Obviously, like the ace went from like Inoki to Fujinami, but that's a company designation of who they want to push. But the guy that was the guy, Choshu was a bigger star than Fujinami. Choshu was such a big star that he took the boom period of New Japan with him to All Japan, and they started winning the war because he went there. And then he came back to New Japan, and then they started winning the war. He was the fucking man.
Yeah, we should do some kind of project on him for the Patreon. I think that would be cool.
Man, you're adding all this stuff to my plate. I just got a new job.
Like, we got to give the paying customer what they want. Dark Soldier says, we've lost Jay, we've lost Ospreay, we lost Ibushi, we've lost Suzuki, we've lost Okada, and now we lost Tangaloa. New Japan can't live without Loa. What can they do without him?
You just got to soldier on.
He also says, why is attacking Tony Khan bad in AEW, but President Tanahashi getting beat up in NJPW is okay? I gotta say, guys, presidents from every sector, from companies and countries, should learn from Tanahashi and take some punches. Am I wrong?
I will say this, like, somebody should have worked with Tony Khan about how to sell that fucking punch. That was one of the worst sells I ever seen.
Bro, it was hilarious.
It was so bad.
He also says, any chance Nemeth is in the G1, or will he pull an Ali and say that don't work for him?
I don't know. I mean, I think he would be welcome in the tournament for sure. I mean, they could use the star power, they could use the diversification of styles and everything, but I don't expect him to be working a tour that difficult.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be in the G1.
Rambo and Slam Pig said TK in the neck brace at the draft was pretty great though. Yeah, I agree, except for he kept turning his fucking head like.
Oh yeah, the whole thing. I love the angle was hilarious, and TK's been hilarious and all over the place. Last set of questions here from Hawaiian Punch BV. He says, after Bushi and Hiromu's 6th failed tag title match, are they the Gotos of the junior tag division?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. Which BOSJ newcomer are you most excited to see? Which BOSJ newcomer are you least excited to see? And why is it Hayata?
I've never seen. I've seen Hayata, but I don't really have strong feelings. So, but everyone keeps saying he sucks, so probably him. In terms of newcomers, I'm most excited to see Dragon Dia because I've heard good things and I've never seen him work. So I'm interested there. And like, I've seen Ninja Mac work and I know how spectacular he is as an aerialist, but I also kind of feel like I don't think Ninja Mac's on the actual level of a lot of the juniors in New Japan. And I feel like some of that will kind of also be exposed, to be honest with you.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm excited for Ninja Mac. That man just the things he can do in the ring are just incredible. But I mean, it could be a Bandito situation. 2019. Like, I feel like we were super hyped on Bandito, and he was kind of hit or miss in some of his matches. Also, the big ones he did great. So maybe it's a similar situation for Ninja Mac.
Yeah, but Bandito's way better than Ninja Mac.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's see here. He says, with outside Japanese talent in BOSJ and NJPW wrestlers appearing in Noah after All Together, are there going to be some outside Japanese talent in the G1 this year? Jake Lee did say that he wanted to be in the G1 when he left AJPW.
They got 32 slots, so yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if they're sticking with 32, I could definitely see Jake Lee, especially, he pinned Naito at All Together. If they don't do that singles match at Dominion or something, I mean, you put those guys in the same block and you do a match there. And then he says, thoughts on Inui's performance against Louis Neary. The fight did over 40K in attendance in the Tokyo Dome. When do you think NJPW will ever reach that level again? What main event would be needed to reach that level? Tenshin versus Takeru did over 56K, but that was a super fight between the top 2 pound-for-pound kickboxers at the time. Nui needed the most hated man in Japan and Neary to bring in that many people. I mean, Japan had to unban him from the country so he could get his deserved ass-whooping from Inui.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw Inui. He's one of the pound-for-pound best boxers in the world today, and just keeps going up and up in weight classes and just keeps destroying guys. His nickname's the Monster, and he really is the fucking monster. But Yeah, he got dropped by Neri early in the fight, I think in the first or second round, and then got off the canvas and dropped him, and then finished him in the 6th round, which was pretty awesome. I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, to get New Japan back to a point where they're doing 40K, I mean, that's what they were doing like at the height of the golden age. And it takes, I think what Tanahashi said earlier, where he said match quality multiplied by fame, multiplied by promotion equals the fans. That's what you need. You need stars who are working at a top level of entertainment and the right promotional vehicle behind them.
Yeah, Rambone says Tanahashi retirement match at the Dome, maybe?
Yeah, that could definitely be an event that could do that. But as we've seen with Noah, it's not all peaches and cream when you just have one event that you can't replicate, year over year to get back to that status. And, that was one of the concerns people had about like Wembley when it came to AEW, like, would they be able to do similar business? And, they're doing good business the second year, but, it's not quite the level of the first Wembley, although it's going to be one of the biggest shows of the year. It's the same thing that happened with them when the first time they did Grand Slam, the numbers diminished each year. And with the Tokyo Dome, like Wrestle Kingdom is an established brand, but it's failed to draw at that same level. And if they did do a Tanahashi retirement, yeah, it might do big business, but once he's gone and people have said their goodbyes, how do they maintain that level of business? How do they replicate it?
Right. What's next? And we saw something similar with AEW with the whole Sting retirement. Like Revolution did incredible buys and house, but then last pay-per-view didn't do as many buys. As also, you had that big, one-time, retirement event. But then, what's the follow-up in there? How do you capture people that are coming from one place to another? Rambo said Chase Owens retirement.
Oh boy.
Oh my god.
They got to build stars, man. They got to build stars, and they got to have better matches. They got to promote that shit,
Yeah. All right. Let's close off real quick with recommended match. Last week I recommended Julia versus Stephanie Vercure from the Strong Women's title match a couple months ago.
Yeah, I watched this. It's available on New Japan World. This is a good match. I would say it was trending to be potentially great, but it just didn't quite get there. The work was really good. Julia in particular, she's known for being extremely stiff worker, and she was, very vicious when it came to her attacks on Stephanie Vercure. I thought Stephanie Vercure showed a lot of heart, but down the tail stretch of the match, it was like pretty much almost all Julia, where Julia was taking a majority of the offense and really Vercure was wrestling from underneath and kicking out of all of her big moves and showing a lot of resilience. And it was starting to feel like they're going to get to another gear when suddenly, and plus like, before I talk about the finish, like they did a great job with like the video package and the promotion and the entrances. It seemed like it was a big deal. And then suddenly Stephanie Vercure does like a wacky, lucha roll up and gets the 1, 2, 3. And it kind of just came from out of nowhere. It's very anticlimactic. And I feel like it was a little bit deflating for the crowd. And, it screamed of, political type of decision,
Yeah, because Stephanie kicked out the Glorious Driver, and then Julia was going for it again, and she just rolled her up out of it, and it looked like Julia's shoulder got up, and then came back down. The rest still counted to 3, and then there was a whole weird post-match angle where Julia's trying to grab the belt away from Stephanie, and Stephanie won't let her get it, and then she gives her like one of the worst like belt shots to the face. So that whole, there's definitely politics and bad blood. Like there's something weird going on there. But I mean, yeah, it was a good match. I thought it was gonna be better than than what it was. But overall, very good match.
And then the match that I chose was the recent IWGP Women's Title match from Stardom Dream Queendom, as the champion Mayu Iwatani defended against Sarii.
Yeah, this match was awesome. They also had a great video package here. Then, plus listening to One Nation Radio, I heard them kind of break down some of the history behind this match. And Sarii was supposed to face Mayu before she left to NXT. And so that match never happened. So also, she's back in Japan. So the match happened here. And man, they were hitting each other so hard. This match was so violent. There was one like running drop kick where Mayu was laying on the bottom row and Sarii comes in with the bottom drop kick. I was just like, oh my God. Like they were just so violent. And like Mayu really turns it up into another gear when she's in matches like this and she's fighting through the pain. And there was just brutal kicks that she was giving to Sarii. This match was just super hard hitting, really fast paced. Mayu ends up hitting that moonsault and then the dragon suplex pinning combo to get the win here. But yeah, this was a really violent, hard hitting. I'm like, somebody tell these two it's a work, brother, because man, like it was stiff.
Yes, it certainly was. I haven't seen a lot of Sarii, but I've heard of her reputation over the years, and I've seen quite a few Mayu matches, and people that are familiar with her probably know better than me, but I'm always a little surprised at how violent Mayu can really get when push comes to shove. Jeremy, I didn't love this match. Here's the thing, and it's, I'm not going to deny two excellent wrestlers, right? Great wrestlers. They showed a lot of toughness, a lot of grit, a lot of determination. They did some really dangerous stuff, and they hit each other really hard. There's tons of dives, and I mean, there's cool shit. Like this match I could definitely see why some people would be like, I mean, if you go on Cage Match, it's got 202 votes with 106 10 star votes. It's sitting at a 9.32. So I mean, that's really, really high. And I thought the crowd reactions were a lot better than the January 4th match that was also highly rated for Mayu that I was a little iffy on. I just have a trouble with the match flow and the structure of the work that I'm seeing in Stardom. It just, to me personally, when I watch it, it just feels like shit is just happening. And I'm sitting there and I'm really, really, really paying attention. And I don't think they hit the right beats at the right time to maximize the emotion, even though they're very emotional themselves in the match. I personally just don't connect with what they're doing because there's very little like interconnectivity to what they're doing. It's almost the physical equivalent to an ECW plunder match. It's like the Sandman. Shit's just happening. A girl gets dropped, and then this is quite frankly what I'm seeing when I watch their matches, and it's at a high level. And people are gonna be pissed when I say this, but I think I'm telling the truth when I say this. This is what a spot fest actually is. When you go through the history of what that word used to mean when people said a match was a spot fest, and it wasn't even always just a bad thing. It could be a good thing, but it's when they're not working, they're just doing spots. That's what they're doing in this match. There's very little minutia of connected work in between the spots. They're kind of just doing spots. They're just hitting each other and they're just dropping each other. And for some people that might be enough, but for me, I'm like, for my sensibilities, my taste in wrestling, I'm like, damn, they're just, I just don't connect with this. Like, and it's hard for me to, say it's as good a match as like something else. I like, for instance, like, just give an example, like Bryan Danielson versus Blue Panther, I think fucking killed this match. Even though it's a totally different kind of match, like that's something I can connect with because there's so much emotion and storytelling going on there. with these matches, you have to kind of know the characters and be connected in that way. But the actual match itself has very little storytelling.
I kind of felt that way with the Julia and Bakura match. I felt like they were just kind of doing stuff for me, which they were doing fine stuff, but I don't know. I felt like there could have been a little bit more there, but I don't know. Like for me, this match was just so hard hitting, so fine. I just felt like a struggle and a fight, and also I don't know the full backstory and stuff, but I definitely feel like it was a very personal kind of thing, and so really leaving before the match happened the first time, and I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot there.
It's weird, and I know like when people are probably listening, and if they really love like modern Joshi, they probably think like I'm out of pocket, and that's fine. I own it. I'm not the only person that doesn't connect with modern Joshi. But the thing that's so strange about it is like anytime I watch All Japan Women's, I'm so engrossed by it. And that's not like some cap shit where I'm like, oh, you know, I like All Japan Women, it's just not Stardom. I'm like, no, I'm just being honest. Like anytime I watch, like, you know, if I'm watching like a Bull Nakano or Aja Kong or fucking what's wrong with me? Why am I forgetting all their names? Manami Toyota or, you know, Akira Hakuto, like their stuff, I'm like, they are just like, when I watch their stuff, I'm like, fuck, they're as good as Eddie, they're as good as Benoit and everything. But when I'm watching this shit, I'm like, I don't know, bro. I just don't get it. It's probably not for me. But like, I'm sure it's got a 9 point something. It's probably still got to be nominated for an Excursion Match of the Year contendership. It's one of the most highly regarded IWGP title matches of the year. But I don't know. I'd probably just go the obligatory 4 on it because I'm just like, I don't know.
I go 4.5 on it.
4.5.
Yeah. Angel says, as someone who's been watching Stardom regularly for a year, I've never really gotten into a Mayu or Julia match that much. Yeah,
I don't know. It's weird. But like, I know fans that are like Julia or not. People are like, Mayu is like one of the absolute best wrestlers in the world. And maybe she is, you know, I've seen some matches of hers that like, I'm not even questioning her
botchamania.
I don't think I've ever actually done that when I wasn't being recorded. That's hilarious. You know, I've seen matches of hers that I like, but for whatever reason, these big Stardom matches that people love, they don't do it for me, bro.
All right, well, that's recommended match of the week. Do you have anything for this week?
No, I'm gonna take it easy. I'm tired.
Yeah, I think we should take a break because we got Super Juniors and Resurgence. We got plenty to watch this week.
We'll try.
Well, that's going to wrap things up. Thank you for our IWGP tier subscribers who are watching the live video stream. Remember, if you want to join in here with us on the video stream, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/KI Strongstyle, and join the IWGP tier. Also, you know, we got the $5 tier, we got the $1 tier. There'll be bonus audio, other stuff coming out on those tiers. So check out the Patreon, patreon.com/KI Strongstyle. Next week, we'll be back to review Resurgence and the first few nights of Best of the Super Junior and give a in-depth review of All Together. And that's going to wrap it up. So make sure you connect with us on social media. On X, we are at KI Strongstyle. On the network at Social Suplex, you can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is keeping a strong style. On YouTube, we are at Social Suplex. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. And you can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imps WWE Adventure with The Implications, Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Things. Tunnel Talk with Allie, Ann, and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.